got into you.
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide. Even those classified sites. Auto Tempest. All the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
Upstate New York, known for some of its most scenic views in one of America's most popular states. Those views extend to the 2.45-mile road course that sits in the heart of the town, offering two perspectives of its own, one looking ahead to a championship and one looking in from the outside of the playoff fight. From the virtual Watkins Glen International, VSPEED welcomes you to the opening race of the round of 12 as part of the Season 7 Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. And with that, we bring you the action on a cloudy and crisp day in sim, ready for some playoff sparks. A warm welcome to you all, where alongside Bradley Cooper in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. After a stunner, Bradley, 2 weeks ago with the virtual Richmond Raceway, we ask ourselves, how could this playoff fight get any more wild? You add a road course to the equation, and it turns up a whole bunch.
Yeah, this schedule, I mean, it's genius the way it's formatted, because no one can really get into their comfort zone. You don't see anyone running away with this. All the way through, we've had a variety of every single style of racing, you know, super speedway, short track. Now we're on a road course. Next week, you know, it's right back to the big tracks and the mile and a halves. And I like the way they formatted this, but it also kind of shakes things up. You know, no one's going to be consistent, and it's going to lock different guys in. We might see some first-time winners in the playoffs this time around.
And for one, it's the only of its kind in these 2024 Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. Only one of 2 road course races that are run this season, alongside Sonoma that we saw earlier in the campaign on race number 8. So it is the only type of road course race on the playoff schedule, meaning that if you're one of those guys that is stellar at these types of racetracks, now may be your time. If you're one of those looking for a championship at season's end, it may be a really crucial round, Bradley, because you look at a road course like this in Watkins Glen that is so fast. Michigan up next with this playoff table at stake. Everyone 1st through 12th, all of them advance after 2 weeks ago at Richmond Raceway. That one was wild. We had a tiebreaker at the end of that. Jesse Whittington just barely getting in by the skin of his teeth. Alex Muscarella and several others on the cut line, including former points leader Austin Reedy.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I mean, we talked about it throughout the regular season that Reedy needed to get a win to solidify this playoffs and help him with bonus points. And then he had a couple opportunities there in those races in the first round of 16 that he could have went out and just snuck a win in and locked himself in. But it was Alex Huffman and Curtis Kelly that got it done, and they put themselves up there on the top with those bonus points and the round wins. So you know, it's tough. It shows that at any given day, any given Sunday, as they like to say, you can get it done, and Alex Huffman, Curtis Kelly proved that.
You know, I'm not the greatest mathematician of all time, but I tried adding all of the bonus points after the last round with Curtis Kelly and Alex Huffman getting those 5 playoff points for each of their wins at Atlanta and at Richmond in round number 1. I'd say around that cut line, it's around 7 points, 9 points about that spread from those several spots above that line versus those that remain at the bottom. Jesse Whittington, who barely squeezed into this round, he's only 7 points away from getting above that top 8 and getting himself an extra spot into the next round. So it is ridiculously close. Obviously, one race in this 2-race round format could mean everything. We saw that in round number 1, could mean the difference here on the road course, where the skill gap is definitely much bigger between those who are good at it and those who struggle quite a bit. Just a note, Zach Wilson is not in this race tonight. He is dealing with the effects of Hurricane Helene that hit his area just several days ago. He is yet to recover internet-wise and is surveying damages at his home. So all of our thoughts and well wishes to Zach Wilson. We hope to see him soon as he and everyone else in the area recovers from the effects of that major Category 4 Hurricane Helene that hit over the weekend. So Wilson may be bounced out of this round if he's not able to make it to Michigan in several weeks' time. But tonight at Watkins Glen, we've got a different challenge on our hands, because several seasons ago with this next-gen car, we had tons of races on the road courses, but this season, only 2. So how important is it to use those notes from Sonoma earlier in the summer, take that into this race, and try to make the best of it?
Yeah, you absolutely have to go back. That it seems like it's been a long time ago, and it really has been. But for these guys to turn right, you got to kind of gauge and base your analysis on this new car based off of that race, because we've had a few updates since then, and iRacing's changed tremendously. This next-gen Cup car has completely 360'd from where it was, you know, just a year ago when they released it. So for them to come out here from Sonoma, you're going to see different names up here at the front, but I know that consistency-wise, Lawson Peel, Austin Reedy, they're going to be the 2 guys based off of last season that we were here, the last time we were here. I think those are the 2 drivers to watch out for.
We would name 3 drivers as road course aces in this series. Lawson Peel, you said one there. Austin Reedy the second. The third, Mario Miranda. Miranda has left the Sunoco Cup Series this season, so he's not going to be in this race. But 4, Peel and Reedy, who have been some of the fastest drivers in practice, it may just be a pure mano-a-mano between those two. It was sort of the same at Sonoma several months ago where Reedy had swept both stages. Lawson Peel, though, was able to squeak out the victory at the end of that one. We'll keep an eye on those two. They seem to be the greatest when it comes down to the stock cars on the road courses in this series. But Bradley, Watkins Glen as a track itself is one of the faster road courses that we see on the NASCAR calendar. Take us through it.
Well, you come out of turn 1 where you're coming down that long hill, and especially on the start of this race, it's going to be very difficult not to have contact. I guarantee we're going to see somebody get into someone in corner 1 at some point in this race. It usually happens at the very start and the restarts, but yeah, you got to be very, very careful. Then you wind your way up through these S's, and it's kind of the medium to the intermediate speed part, and then that long straightaway before the bus stop. You're going to see speeds of well over 170 miles per hour before they hit that chicane and into the carousel. Then it's around that long sweeping corner that a lot of drivers will set up an overtake into the final 2 turns. And off that final right-hander, we've seen some very historic passes or, lack thereof where drivers will get into one another to come across that start-finish line. A lot of races have been made and lost there in that final turn.
And in some cases, some would argue that Watkins Glen drives more like an oval than it does a road course because you have a lot of these fast corners that rely a lot on weaving your way through them. A lot of it carries momentum in it. Other than that bus stop chicane you'll see at the back straightaway, it is shortened from its original layout, which has the boot at the back end of the circuit, but we just go straight from that carousel to what we call turn 6 and 7. That will be some of the really fast corners we'll see that lead us back to that start finish line. It's one of the road courses that has been used one of the most times in the Sunoco Cup Series calendar over the last several seasons, but we've only seen one driver take it as of late, the man of Columbus, Mississippi, Lawson Peel. Let's get you through some of the race analysis we are expected to see tonight. We go 70 laps from upstate New York, a total of 171 miles, a little over that. Stages are split this way, 20 laps to the end of stage 1. We go another 20 to lap number 40. That concludes stage number 2. We'll run the final 30 up until the end at lap number 70. Cautions are going to be enforced. Because of the stages, there will not be enforced for on-track incidents. So that's another topic we'll be discussing in this playoff fight, just how crucial mistakes will matter in a playoff situation like this. Pit road speed sits at 40 miles an hour. We mostly will see drivers come in during the caution laps, but we could see strategy implement itself on stage 3. 5 tire sets available for the drivers just in case they need any of that extra grip. And we could extend this race past scheduled distance. We'll just see, though. We never usually see it happen on the road courses since we go green, so we should not expect that to be a concern. Let's take you trackside to bring you tonight's Sunoco starting grid for the first race of the round of 12 in the Season 7 playoffs. Austin Reedy in the 96 looking to grab road course win number 1 on the year. Felt like Sonoma eluded him quite a little bit. He scores a 111.623 and grabs the pole for just, I believe it might be one of the first times this season. Steven Stempian, the Massachusetts driver, on his outside looking to continue a strong playoff run. He'll sit on the outside of the front row. Stephen Harlow, the rookie driver, continues to impress. Solid qualifying effort to put him inside row 2. Curtis Kelly for Fast Banana Racing will be on the outside. That is position number 4. Justin Erb in his Chevrolet will line up just inside the top 5. He'll have Jesse Whittington, who barely got in through points 2 weeks ago, wanting to create a better advantage going into Michigan International Speedway. He'll start from position number 6. Prestige Worldwide Racing has Chris Shoemaker on the inside of row number 4. Colin Forrester for Fast Banana Racing, a playoff points leader going into this race. He'll start on the outside in 8th. Back in 9th, you'll find Richard Swavely in his number 32 machine, with Alex Huffman, the winner from Richmond just 2 weeks ago. He'll try and continue his momentous fight through the playoffs as a rookie driver. Kip easily rolls off from 11th. Shane White, another rookie, back in 12th for row number 6, Bradley.
Then you've got row number 7 with Austin Shoemaker, Alex Muscarella, who got his way, unfortunately, eliminated into the final round of 12. He'll start in 14th. Lawson Peel, all the way back in 15th position, choosing not to put up a time. He'll start next to Garrett Brown, so interesting there for the 12. We'll have to see if he can navigate through this traffic. 17th will start Wyatt Brackett with Sean Kalist in 18th. And then your top 20, Dustin Reeves in the 6th, and Casey Knighton in the 28th.
The final 3 on your grid include Chuck Stevens in his number 84 machine, Chris Progar in 22nd, and Wyatt Brackett at the tail end of this 23-car field that looks rather slim. That's because it is. It's one of the shorter fields we're having here in this Sunoco Cup Series. It just shows you how difficult road course racing is. Obviously, the hurricane over the weekend affected many drivers, but road courses in general, Bradley, turn a lot of drivers off. You'll see at a lot of these racetracks, plenty of guys will be like, I'd rather skip, wait until we get to another oval race, because road courses are very challenging and it's not really for everyone.
Well, you can see it in the chat. Dakota Wilson said road courses are yucky. Hopefully the 27 team has a good result. A lot of guys are discouraged by tracks like this. It's the mental focus it takes lap after lap. One mistake, you have 7 opportunities here to mess up, so you just do that 70 times and you'll be fine.
So as everyone makes their way around the back straightaway to the bus stop chicane, under pacing for the first time, you'll see some of the challenges that arise here at this Watkins Glen International Circuit. One thing that we should also know, with these next-gen cars, Bradley mentioned how things have changed over the last several seasons with this car. On iRacing, they added the new road course package to these next-gen cars, meaning you don't have the full underbody diffuser at the back end of the race car. You only have 2 little strakes. We'll see if we can get a better look at it. There's a look from Austin Reedy's machine. Only the 2 strakes at the bottom end of the race car. You don't see it extend to that rear bumper. Usually you'll see it go all the way in the case of most oval tracks on the schedule. Not the case here on the road courses with the 670 horsepower engine. So you lack a bit of downforce in the rear. These cars may not be as grippy as they would be earlier in the campaign or even in the Sunoco Cup Series history at the road courses. Austin Reedy, who starts on the pole in this race, has led 21 laps in the last race here at the Glen, but he's yet to win a race this season. His first win last season came at an oval, but it has not come the way of a road course. Remember, he swept both stages at Sonoma, our last road course event of the season. Pace car will push its way to the right, and the entry of pit road, the Toyota of Austin Reedy and Steven Stepien bring us down the long straightaway. Let's go road course racing for just the 2nd time this season. Entryway in turn 1, no harm, no foul. Almost a bit of 3 wide as they come off of turn 1, but Steven Stepien putting the pressure to Austin Reedy, steals the race lead up through the S's.
Quick move there. I'm glad everybody was able to get through turn 1. They're not done yet, though. Here's the fastest part of the racetrack, over 170, like I said, just before you hit the brakes. And there's Stepien all over that chicane. Mistake there by Reedy. He overshoots the exit of turn 2 in that chicane, and he's going to lose 5-6 positions.
Well, Reedy just bobbled over the curbs there at the entry of the bus stop, had to gather it up together, skip through the grass, and in turn drops about 5 to 6 positions. Chris Shoemaker ends up on the inside in turn 6. Richard Swavely and Kip Easley in their continuous fight for 8th place. They'll settle behind this T-Bird Designs Toyota Camry, but a big mistake there early from one of our best road course racers in this series. A look on board from Easley, still in that fight with Swavely. They continue door to door down the front straightaway. It's a wonderful battle that has kept up through this first lap. Alex Huffman now joining the fight. The entry to turn 1, very difficult 90-degree right-hander. They call this corner the 90. It's because of its exact angle. Huffman, though, gets the bump off of turn 1. We'll get the momentum through the hills and up to the S's on Kip Easley. Huffman, the winner from Richmond 2 weeks ago, ends up getting through. Alex Huffman to 9th place.
The similarities here, you have a much tighter set of S's at Sonoma, but it is something to take note of because it's a rhythmic part of the racetrack. If you can hit it just right, you can make up a lot of time. You don't have to be perfect in every corner, but the fast sections of the racetrack that's set up for those long straightaways here at Watkins Glen, you want to do your best at the corners that's set up for those because you can make up a lot of ground. And even if you're kind of racing poor in some of the parts like the carousel where it's easy for guys to overtake, you can get away from them. So you'll see this all night long where there'll just be an accordion effect back and forth. Drivers will be better at certain corners all the way through this track.
And one thing that stands out about the Glen in comparison to Sonoma, for example, is that the track in Sonoma County, California is a bit more technical. You don't necessarily have to keep momentum up through a previous corner just to gain momentum in the next corner. The only example I can really think of is the entry to turn 11. If you can get a good run out of turn 10, and then you'll be able to snag a position if you end up at the hairpin. Cars around right in front of Lawson Peel. It was Richard Swavely who went for a spill, drifting the rear tires at the exit of turn 1 and picks up some right front damage as a result.
They just came over that transition, and we talked about the underbodies of this car, how it's changed in the road course package, but it still has that front diffuser that can drag across these curbs, and if you're not careful, you can lose the back end just from that friction. It'll upset the suspension very easily. It almost becomes a snowboard when you hit them the wrong way.
Well, one thing about these cars, even if you change the package a bit, is it does not like any sideways action. It does not like yaw from Richard Swavely, who somehow bobbled over that first corner curving and then ended up to the inside, just got it all out of whack. He's able to keep the car collected, although we're not sure how much damage that is assessed to his Chevrolet and how much it will affect him. It does not take him out of contention, nor does it give him any suspension damage, so he should be okay, but down the straightaways could lose several miles an hour. We mentioned with Bradley that Lawson Peel started this race in 15th. Now he's ducking under Alex Huffman for 7th. Quick progression from the road course champ in this series.
Yeah, already up 8 spots, and you know that traffic, it's spread out now. He's able to pick them off 1 or 2 at a time. But right there, just before the S's, he got a 2-for-1 special, got around the 4 of Shoemaker, around the 10 of Alex Huffman. Now he's going to go into the bus stop with clean air and chase down your pole sitter. Austin Reedy still hasn't recovered, and I think Lawson Peel's on the opposite side of that, where even if he chose not to qualify, he might be one of the fastest cars on this racetrack.
Well, even with everything that went down throughout the first round of these Sunoco Cup Series playoffs, the 2-time champion of this series in Lawson Peel has still managed to get a decent point total out of it. He comes in theoretically as the second driver in the standings, only 14 points above that cut line. It doesn't say much, but in a series that relies so much probably on this first race in order to set up for the second in these playoff rounds, Peel has done really nicely for himself, and as one of the stronger road course racers in this series, he may tally up with Austin Reedy, who sits in P6. Those two, some of the strongest drivers, but seem to be lacking a little early on in this race. There's Reedy picking up on 5th place Jesse Whittington. You were watching that battle a little further up the ground. Justin Urban, Curtis Kelly may go door to door in that action for the last spot on the podium. There they are, Curtis Kelly in that Fast Banana 5-hour Energy Camry, holding off the Home Depot Chevrolet of Justin Urban. These guys, despite the early mistake by Reedy, haven't relinquished their track position all that much. Very fast to start, although Kelly does bump a little bit of the inside grass there in the bus stop. They've done well for themselves right now. And Stephen Harlow managing second, only 1.1 seconds away from Stepien, the race leader.
I was watching there, Shane Wyatt just lost a spot. It was a pretty clean pass there by Austin Shoemaker to get by. That's where you'll see some guys get gutsy, especially later in this race, where if they could set up, get side by side with you on that long straight, there's kind of a no fear factor at that point. When you get late in this race, you have to take it any way you can. Passes are far and few between. Watching Steve Stepien, though, he's kind of maintaining that 1 second gap over Harlow. I've seen Harlow faster, you know, into turn 1, but then he kind of loses it through the carousel. And like I said earlier, there's certain parts that certain drivers will get through better than others. For Stepien right now, I think he's just pacing himself, trying not to use up his stuff.
Well, does this look a little bit familiar, Bradley, between Stempien and Harlow? We saw this 2 weeks ago at Richmond Raceway, where these guys were scrapping for the race lead. Some of the strongest drivers all night long. Neither of them could get a solid result at the end of it just because of the chaos that rung out in those final 20-ish laps. But here they are, 1-2 of the road course, while Austin Riddy and Lawson Peel have been playing catch-up throughout the first 6 laps of this race. The 88 and the 33 are just taking care of business right now. And Harlow, you're right, is picking up in certain parts of the racetrack. He's clocked in a 112.0. Stempien was about 2/10 slower that last time around. Harlow is catching up, putting some pressure on the DTH Chevrolet.
So we're going to ride on board here with the 33 and show you how much you're working the wheel all the way through these corners as he shaves off another 10th or 2 into the entry of turn 1. A little counter steer, try not to hit that rumble strip the wrong way. And now through the S's, you got to set this up wide so you can take the opposite turn just right and stay on the throttle. You can get on it too much there and step the back end out, but now this is the fastest part of the racetrack, and you actually get a little bit of a draft effect here through this portion of the racetrack. That's how fast they're going, and now it's just who can brake and blink first. Don't want to hit these rumble strips too hard. You saw it with Reedy. It sent him way out into the grass. And that sweeping carousel. It's just such a, it is a technical track. Not as technical as Sonoma, but it can be if you analyze every aspect of where you can make up a 10th here or there. You can be really good at this place.
He can carry a lot of momentum too. That's what Harlow is doing. That's what's giving him this advantage. It's almost 6/10. And that separation between Harlow and Stempien. And on the lap counter, Harlow is faster by half a second at least from Stempien's machine. So early in this run, Stephen Harlow is clocking down these fast laps and may put the fight up to your current race leader in any moment's notice. 8 laps down from Watkins Glen, 12 to go until the end of our first stage. It'll be very quick, blink of an eye, no cautions, and we'll have our stage over. We'll award all of those points, which will mean a lot, especially for Stempien Bradley, who faced a really rough round 1. Remember Atlanta, where he got pushed into the outside wall and hooked. Basically, his race was over early on. Recovered nicely at Richmond, but could not capture the win he was really hoping for. He still comes into this race with a healthy balance over that round of 8 cut line, but this will mean a lot more if he can sweep the stages here at the Glen, get that momentum, and continue rolling with a possible 4th win on the season.
Yeah, it's going to help tremendously, and it was one of those scenarios you don't want to be in when you have only 2 races in a round and you get taken out to where you don't even get stage points at Atlanta, and then you have to perform, execute every single time at Richmond. He did exactly what he needed to do, and so good recovery for the 88. I think he's kind of been playing that offense all season with the injury, and then, he's just had to play recovery all year, so it's nothing new to him. I think he does his best work when he feels that sense of urgency.
He's got that inspiration as well, and you can tell from the font of the 88s on the sides and the top of his Chevrolet Camaro. Not the usual Junior Motorsports 88 font that you'll see him on the racetrack with often in this series and in other leagues. He's got the Shane Van Gisbergen 88 that the New Zealander will run next season when he goes NASCAR Cup Series racing. Van Gisbergen barely shy of the win here at Watkins Glen several months ago in the real-life Cup Series as he got moved out of the way by Chris Buescher on the final lap. Maybe doesn't want to ignite that kind of comeback from another driver and that kind of loss, but Stempien just trying to harness some of that road course prowess is doing so right now, and as Stephen Harlow evens out, stays within half a second, the Chevrolets could put up a fight, but Stempien at this moment in time currently in control. Nice battle further back inside the top 10. Alex Muscarella, Chris Shoemaker for 9th, turn 6.
And Muscarella just peeks to the inside, gets into the back of the 4 just a little bit there. Now he's going to have the move to the inside in the final corner, but I think there was just a little bit of contact there. 48 right on the edge. And sometimes that's what happens when you're trying to complete that pass. You get back to the throttle too soon. Now you got to hit the reset button.
Well, then you go up into the outside barrier, too, if you go a little cookage in turn 7. But Muscarella will try this once again. He is one of the faster drivers in comparison to Shoemaker's Prestige Worldwide Racing Ford Mustang. We'll keep an eye on these two. These are highlighted playoff drivers in the field. Shoemaker pointing his way into these playoffs. Muscarello winning his way in via that Daytona race, the last event of the regular season. Shoemaker lined up in 7th at the start of this race. Bled off 2 positions, but has done nicely to keep himself in this top 10. And Shoemaker does sit rather nicely above that cut line by about 10 points. Muscarello, on the other hand, just has to scrap it and fight for every last position he can get. He's only 2 points above that round of 8 line, so if you're that low Chevrolet, you may just want to start digging early on in stage 1. Backs out in turn 6. Like we saw here, just gets the run off the corner. Hops over the curb, turn 7. Not the striking point for Muscarello just yet.
And I want to apologize to Muscarello. I don't know why, but I said here in the pre-race that he was out of the top 12. I was completely wrong on that, so I do want to correct that mistake. Muscarello getting that win at Daytona that put him in there. And for all the things that went wrong at super speedways for him, it was good to see him back in victory lane to finally, since season 5, I think it was, that he hadn't been there. And it was really one of those races in the first week here at Sunoco Cup Series in season 7 that was like, it defined how the season was going to go for Muscarello. So he's turned it around.
It was season 3 at Michigan. That was Muscarello's last win prior to that Daytona W that got him into these playoffs. But in a format like this, Bradley, a win could eliminate all negativity. Despite Muscarello's bad luck, everything that happened, our constant commentators, jinxes, so on and so forth. Yeah. Muscarello grabbed the win. Guess what? All of that's erased, and he's survived the first round. So that can tell you his resilience and just how much a win means in this playoff system where it can easily turn things around. There's Austin Reedy sliding into 5th place, getting around Justin Erb. Him and Lawson Peel carving through the field, but they've swapped positions. Lawson Peel was just behind Reedy several laps ago, has made his way through. He's up to 4th place and tracking down Curtis Kelly. Tall task, though, about 3 seconds between those 2 drivers.
So with the stage break on lap 20, Peel's in a better situation. He won't have as much traffic to navigate through. I think right now you're seeing the byproduct of passing all of these cars, started back at 15th, now up to 4th. He's still on pace to catch the lead. He's about a 10th faster than Steve Stempien, so you factor in this reset, we're going to group these guys back up. I think Lawson Peel is going to have a better time, a better chance at the lead.
Lawson looking for 2 for 2 on these road course races. One at Sonoma, like we mentioned, in mid-June. And to tell you just how good he is at the road courses in the Sunoco Cup calendar, he's won 4 of the last 5 road course races in this series. So he is one of those ringers for sure, despite being a threat as well on most of the ovals throughout the calendar year. Lawson, overall, this season has picked up 3 wins. His last came in mid-July at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He continues to track down Curtis Kelly. That'll be for 3rd place. Harlow and Stempien remain 1 and 2, separated now by 0.7 of a second. And when you talk about the first stage at a road course, it probably is very different, Bradley, to those at an oval. You can learn specific things on an oval. You can't apply it to road courses and vice versa. So if you're any of these guys, what do you prioritize to learn over this first stage now that it's about to end in 7 laps? And how do you carry that information to the rest of the race?
I would prioritize how far can I go on fuel, where are my tires, what's the fall off, and what's the worst part of the track for me? Where am I losing the most ground? You can go through practice and figure that out, I think, for the most part, but then when you get into race pace, you see what other guys are doing, and sometimes it hypnotizes you to change your line, or maybe you get into a scenario where you battle a guy for too many laps and burn your stuff up, and that's the learning curve now. When we're at race pace, you're just going to have to factor that all together.
And we'll talk about fuel specifically in that last stage. These drivers are good to go for the most part on 20 laps of fuel. That is close to the marker where they would need to come down pit road, but since the cautions fly and where they do in the first 2 stages, it probably is not the biggest concern. Tires as well, despite the fact that we've been discussing tire wear all season long, on the road courses with the next-gen cars, they don't fall off that much. So you probably will see instances where guys just come in for fuel only and they don't even bother putting a fresh set of Goodyear Eagles on. In some cases it helps, but for the most experienced and some of the fastest drivers, Bradley, it doesn't make that big of a difference.
I believe you. I'm looking at the best lap time for Steve Stympian, and his last lap time, a 1:12.229 was his best time. He just ran a 1:12.288, so not that much fall off. I think Clean Air has been tremendously great to this 88, but a lot of these guys are well within half a second of their best time.
It's sort of that idea, right, that as the fuel burns off, the car gets lighter, therefore it gets a little faster. Very different from the ovals, where you're not only thinking about a lighter race car with fuel concerns, but you're thinking about how am I saving my tires the best if this run goes 30, 40, 50 laps at a time. But here at the road courses, you're just thinking about, can I make it on fuel? Can I make it on fuel? Can I make it on fuel? There's a look on board from the Mississippi driver of Peel. He's caught up to Curtis Kelly. You want to give a note to how quick Peel is in comparison. He's about 8/10 faster than the 5-hour Energy Camry. So Peel is clocking in these heaters, and he's catching up to the 71 on board from the Fast Banana Camry.
So right here, I've been watching. This is where he makes up most of his time. You're going to see him all over the back bumper of the 71 here just momentarily. It's that section through the bus stop and then this carousel where he really accelerates. And Peel, I don't know how he's doing it, but he seems to have just a little bit better drive off in every part of this racetrack. You know, we're talking about thousandths of a second, but you add that up over the entire course, it turns into a couple tenths.
It makes up for a big difference, that bus stop being a crucial separator from those who can use it to its maximum efficiency and those who still lack a little bit. Curtis Kelly, though, doing a fantastic job for how he is sitting on the podium. He may just get swallowed up by Peel and Reedy in the next several laps just because that's the nature of how these guys are at these specific types of tracks. But Kelly, the winner at Atlanta to kick off the Sunoco Cup playoffs, has done really well for himself. Here comes Peel, exit of turn 1. Might make a move down the back straightaway if he can get the run through the S's, but Kelly, who has started off these playoffs in the best way possible, can easily survive to the round of 8, given all of his momentum.
I'm watching here with the 71 is, you know, through those S's, he was really good, but turn 1, he gave up a lot of time. Now it's into these 90-degree corners that Lawson Peel's going to keep the pressure. I don't think that Peel's going to force anything here. I think he's just waiting on Curtis Kelly to maybe make a mistake before he tries to capitalize. Like, we have a reset here within the next 4 laps. No reason to get too ambitious and push it too hard.
Well, Peel may strike, specifically in turn 1, as long as he can get this momentum off of turn 6 and 7, but each passing lap that he stays behind the 5-hour Energy Camry, and looking in the distance, is Austin Reedy, so it could easily become a 2 or 3 horse fight at the end of this. Fantastic final corner for Curtis Kelly. Separates himself from Peel, stays ahead, and can stop the bleeding for a little bit. 3 laps to go in stage 1.
Checking back here for stage points. Austin Shoemaker a little out of this picture, but this is 9th and 10th position. Alex Muscarella just ahead of Chris Shoemaker. He's putting the pressure on. He's been within 2 tenths here for the last couple laps, and it looks like he peaks to the inside and won.
He lunges in the first corner, no dice as they work up the hill through the S's. Wonderful job by Muscarella to move on through. The onboard look from Shoemaker showing how he wrestles the race car up the hill. I don't know if he's got the run here down the back straightaway to that bus stop chicane. Muscarella may have enough momentum to stay ahead right now. And remember, this is only for 1 point of a difference. The 10th driver in the standings or in the running order will get 1, as Muscarella wiggles it sideways off of the bus stop, but he hangs on to it.
That was wheeling it right there for the 48. We got to go on board with that. That is wheeling it to its max.
Oh, boy. Well, talk about using the curbs. It can still rattle this race car a bit. And Muscarella did a great job of keeping it straight. Chris Shoemaker is still within striking distance, though. If he throws a dart, he may catch the bullseye. Final 2 laps in stage number 1 from the Glen. This battle for 9th place, phenomenal. And as I was mentioning earlier, before Muscarella went for the slide, it's only a difference of 1 point. If you're 10th at the end of the stage, you get 1 point. If you're 9th at the end of the stage, you get 2. So it's not the biggest difference in the world, though when we're talking small margins in a close playoff fight, it may mean the difference between fighting from behind the 8 ball at Michigan to standing above that cut line. Kelly under fire from Austin Reedy. This is for 4th place.
Yeah, Peel, during that action that we saw with Muscarella, he must have got around Curtis Kelly. He'd been within a tenth there for a while. I don't know if Kelly made a mistake or not, but you know, Kelly's really holding his own. He's got a teammate behind him here, and with Austin Reedy not in the oh man, it's tight here off of the final corner, but I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. One lap to go.
Well, this will be it. If Curtis Kelly can withstand the pressure from his teammate behind. Remember, these are group drivers at Fast Banana Racing, but they are individual entities when running for the championship. They've done so well over this series. They started off with a bang at Atlanta Motor Speedway with teammate Colin Forster leading a ton of laps. Austin Reedy getting in his bag as well. Curtis Kelly grabbing the race win. These guys have been working in their groups. Wyatt Bracken, despite being eliminated from the playoffs last race at Richmond. No, even then, Fast Banana continuing their strength. Curtis Kelly will keep an eye on him as this thing moves forward. But Steven Stempien, who felt a bit of the heat from Stephen Harlow in the early portion of stage 1, has run away with it. Almost a second between those two Chevrolets. Entering the final 2 corners, turn 6 and turn 7. Flawless stage 1 for Massachusetts Steven Stempien, who will come away with his 7th stage win of the 2024 season. Stage 1 complete from the Glen. And with that, Austin Reedy grabs the 4th spot from Curtis Kelly in a beautiful move down the final several corners. But Steven Stempien, who has been the man on fire at the end of the regular season and a bit of these Sunoco Cup playoffs, is through, gets the stage win. And here's how the pass happened, turn 6.
It's really impressive there that Reedy got such a good run on the outside. I think Kelly maybe cut him a little break. He could have forced the issue there on the entry to the final corner, but no reason. You gotta kind of live to fight another day on that one.
And just an update from that battle within 9th and 10th, Muscarella coughed up a mistake over that last lap. It was off turn 6 where he did so, caught a piece of that inside tire barrier, and in turn allowed Chris Shoemaker to move on through. So the 2 points go to the Prestige Worldwide Racing Ford Mustang of Shoemaker Muscarella, the final driver inside the top 10. Well, it's a long wait here at Watkins Glen to find that iRacing official pace car. They'll pick it up in turn 1. I guess that's the biggest difference, Bradley, when you race at these road courses. The stage ends feel a little bit longer. You clock in maybe a bit more time just because you find that pace car. There it is, exiting turn 1 and up through the S's. So finally we'll be under yellow and everyone should come down pit road. But what's your biggest key to this pit road entry, the first time we'll see it tonight?
It's a little opposite there. You're going to pit on the right-hand side. It's also downhill, so sometimes it's a little difficult to see where your stall is. That's the main focus I have here, is don't miss your stall. We've seen, it seems to happen all the time here at Watkins Glen, where drivers will just miss their stall entirely and have to pass through the pit road and come all the way back around. And at that point, they've lost every position they may have gained here on this run. So focus on that. Know where you started this race so you know where your stall is going to come up.
Often we see drivers overshoot their pit stalls because of these next-gen brakes. Even if you put it to the test over the first 21 laps, you can still make that mistake. The car won't slow down until the entry of the pit box. So an easy overshoot could cost you some tenths of time, could cost you the lead in this case if you're Steven Stempien, but could cost you a start to the second stage, which will take us to lap number 40. So again, we're splitting these stages 20 apiece. In the first edition of this race, the first half of this race, if you will, we'll go the final stage 30 laps. That may allow for some pit road calls, but for the most part, the first 2 stages, we'll see exactly what we did in this first stint. Just run it all the way to the end, do what you can to gain position, and then just come down pit road. And that concern for fuel is basically eliminated in that case. So again, we'll go the final lap, or the final stage for 30 laps until 75. So we'll go actually 35 laps in this case. They extended it past what was the originally scheduled distance at 70 on the Discord chat a couple days ago. Well, here are the leaders. Pit road I don't think anyone decides to stay out here. All 20-ish drivers are in this time by.
A subtle little mistake here on VSPEED. We occasionally do that. We are human, but I'll look to get that fixed as soon as possible. What does that do for fuel, though? I think that factors in. That's going to change things a little bit. I know that that window was, I think you said about 20 laps there, so we might see some green flag pit stops based off that number.
We might be close. Everyone, though, in on pit road. Stempien, the easy leader, coming in. Remember, Harlow was back in second. Lawson Peel sat back in third. There he is. His ex-Chevrolet gets out ahead first, but no match for Stempien, who comes away with the pit road lead. Jesse Whittington and Justin Erb jump Lawson Peel. They'll take third and fourth when we kick off stage number 2 from the virtual Watkins Glen International Circuit. Austin Reedy, the pole sitter, but Steven Stempien is the man to beat over 22 laps and 1 stage. You're watching coverage of the Season 7 Sunoco Cup Series playoffs live on VSPEED.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide. Even those classified sites. Auto Tempest. All the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
Welcome back to Watkins Glen International, the site of the first round of 12 race for the Season 7 Sunoco Cup Series playoffs, with all of our coverage on VSPEED. Kenneth Bueno and Bradley Cooper here to join you for the action. Steven Stempien, the winner of the first stage. He'll lead us back to green with Stephen Harlow on his inside. After our first and only caution for the race, we are not having yellows for any on-track incident. Colin Forrester, who has been the man on fire over these playoffs, has had an average finish of second, has finished P2 in both of the playoff races to the eventual winner. Right now, after starting 8th, he has dropped to P14. It's been rather a struggle for the Jacksonville, Florida native. So we'll see if he'll be able to recoup and rebalance himself for the next 2 stages of the race. But so far, not much to speak of from that Fast Banana Toyota Camry. Remember, he is the playoff points leader going into tonight's race. Stempien with absolutely no resistance in the final laps of stage number 1. How will it fare as Lawson Peel and Austin Reedy catch up? green flag back in the air. Stage 2 underway from the Glen. In the chase to turn 1, Stepien has the upper hand. Harlow holds back. Whittington and Justin Erb go door-to-door for position. Everyone keeps it clean up through the S's and the hill.
Little out wide there for Alex Muscarella. He was in the top 10 there on this restart. Now he's all the way back to 14th. He lost a lot of ground there. I don't think there was any contact. I think he just overshot the entry a little bit there. Now he's got to go back on offense into the chicane.
And it's going to bump Colin Forrester. He locks up the brakes at the entry to the bus stop. It'll cost him at least one spot. Charles Stevens makes his way down low in the carousel. And remember, Muscarella had just barely got into the top 10. He'll get bumped by Stevens, who goes spinning in the carousel. And trouble up the road. Chris Progar and Sean Kalis might have gotten into trouble at the exit of the carousel. As Chuck Stevens went for the spin, and 2 cars massively damaged as Progar's machine limps around, and this is how it all started.
Kalis got loose out of the carousel, and Progar thought he had it collected, then the 96 snapped free again. Or the 90, rather.
So Kalis got loose, clipped the grass on the outside of that straightaway. This is getting by Muscarella, and what happened with Charles Stevens, so he wiggles the car, just grabbed the grass. Car lost control, went into Chris Progar, and hard. Progar's machine went into that Armco barrier. He is just getting around Sean Kalis now. They're both on pit road. Here's a look from Progar's car. Nowhere to go.
We've seen that before there, and that out of that carousel, turn 5, where drivers will hit that so hard that it'll just, throw the, I think they put like a barrier there back in the day, and it'll throw so much debris on the racetrack that they have to red flag the race. It is one of the worst corners to come out wrong. So, yeah, almost guaranteed that you're going to get terminal damage after you hit that wall.
Well, what makes it worse in this edition of Sunoco Cup road course racing is that there are no yellows for on-track incidents. So in like real-life NASCAR, where if you get a piece of damage and you end up in an incident, caution flag will wave as a result. And that does not happen here in iRacing. You go green all the way into the end of what we call the stages, where the admins and Josh Lokovitz, our race control, manually throws the yellow flags. But not if there's a crash on either part of the racetrack, especially if it's not a huge stack-up or a huge incident that takes out a majority of the field. So for Progar, he's taken his Chevrolet behind the wall. He is out of tonight's race. Sean Kalis still is on pit road. He's already fallen a lap down from the leaders.
What was that?
And I think that was Austin Reedy, it was, who went hard into the barriers at the exit of the bus stop. And one of the strongest road course racers is out 26 laps in.
I saw Alex Huffman drifting. I don't know if he was able to save it. I think he did. But look at this.
And it takes out both Fast Banana entries there. Curtis Kelly, in the midst of it all, passes his teammate, but gets almost all of that damage as Greedy went sailing into the barrier. This will hurt him drastically, Bradley, in the playoff fight. And this is what happened to Kelly as he was trying to just get by this incident.
Reedy bounced off that wall so hard. A nice 360 there. Wouldn't go for style points at this racetrack, but I mean, as far as what could have happened, I think for Curtis Kelly, he just got a free one.
He was able to get away barely, and he's only in P8, but he does have some significant damage on the left front of the race car, right rear as well. And he'll sit inside the top 10, and despite all of that, will still survive, given everything that just happened, as the battle inside the top 10 and even outside of it is getting heated up. Colin Forrester, who started 14th at the end of, or rather the beginning of stage 2, he's worked his way up to 11th. Jesse Whittington right behind, Kip Beasley and Richard Swavely among those behind, back to 14th.
Well, you called out Colin Forrester there just before this stage 2, or stage end, and I think he heard it. He came out here with a little bit of lightning, and he's now advanced 3 spots from where we started, looking to maybe get some stage points. He's got Chris Shoemaker about 8/10 ahead of him. He can very easily chase him down. He's plenty of laps to do it.
Well, that is big that Forster missed out on crucial stage points just to keep his playoff point tally alive. At the end of that first stage, he can still rebound here, falling back to Chris Shoemaker. The onboard look from Jesse Whittington, who's got a special paint scheme for the month of September. He's sideways up through the S's, but he holds on to it. Wonderful save as here comes the M&M's machine of Kip Easley down to the inside. Not the place you want to attempt to pass. Easily holds back, will stay put, and Whittington keeps on with that 12th running position. I talked about how Whittington is running a special scheme tonight on behalf of Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. And we'll talk about that a little more as he wiggled sideways through the S's. He'll just clip the guardrail there on the inside. You talked about that, Bradley, that you can find trouble there if you keep the throttle up enough and that car doesn't arc the corner well. Whittington, though, wonderful job to keep it straight, and he holds on to a top 15.
Riding on board with the 94. You remember he was right on that cutoff line, so he needs to have a stellar day as he locks it up into 1. This is not the moment here. He's going to hit the wall.
Oh, and goes straight into the tire barriers. Did not have enough time to get out of it. And it looks like he has taken his car out of the fight. So another car taken out of contention. Jesse Whittington makes the mistake, overshoots turn 1, and that's his race done from the Glen.
This is just a little bit of error on the braking, maybe even a wheel hop on the downshift. And you could see it, not happy on the live feed. Got to be frustrating. You know, you come out here, you drive your heart out for the first 20, 25 laps, and it takes one mistake. You've done 7 corners 20 plus times, and you mess it up once, and you're done.
That's what a road course is all about. You make one mistake, you could send yourself behind the wall and into the garage as quickly as it comes. So it is really tough there for several of those guys taken out early in stage 2. We still have 45 laps left in this race, so we're not even about halfway in the going, and we've got several contenders that will not see past lap 30. Here's your top 3: Stepien, Harlow, and Peel. 1, 2, 3, all of them Chevrolets. And look who's creeping up. Cue the Jaws theme, because Lawson Peel is starting to pounce for 2nd place.
Yeah, he's there. He's definitely in the heads, the minds of Stepien and Harlow. Harlow doing a great job matching his line, taking any opportunities away. But I think it's kind of one of those inevitable situations. 33 is just trying to bide his time, play as long as he can here in the 2nd spot. For Steve Stepien, I'm going to look to run away as far as I can here, put as much distance as I can. I think the opportunity is presenting itself into turn 1.
Here he goes, Lawson Peel. Going into turn 1, he'll have the momentum on Harlow. He'll arc the car down low, and that's a textbook road course pass. Lawson Peel through to 2nd through the 90.
He's going to set his sights now on the 88 of Stepien, and these last couple times by, he's a couple tenths faster. I think right now, if I'm Stepien, I'm going to play a little defense, maybe use that 12 up for all it's worth. You also don't want to get yourself in a spot, though, where maybe he gets into you. So here we are. Stepien got stage 1 points. Is that enough here at Watkins Glen to make it a good day and move on to Michigan?
Well, to be fair, we have yet to see these two go blow for blow on the racetrack. Austin Reedy started this one on the race lead. He started this one on a pole, but cooked turn 1, cooked a couple corners. After that, Steven Stepien moved his way by, and Lawson Peel had to cover from 15th place. Look at the run through turn 6. Can he make the run through 7? He cannot, but turn 1 is looming in the distance. Peel could be able to get under Stepien, but he does not have the momentum. Give it another lap. Lawson Peel could be in possession of the race lead. He is charging on the Massachusetts native.
I think Stympian right now, if he could get that second stage, it's kind of what Reedy did at Sonoma, where he had both those stages and the points were almost equal to that win that Lawson Peel had. You know, you lead the vast majority of these laps, you get both stages. It's almost like a victory in itself. You stay up in the top 3 to finish this thing. I think that's an excellent day. If he wins it, I mean, we haven't seen anybody statistically better than Lawson Peel. And with Stympian putting the practice in, he knows where he was there at Richmond. The one that got away, it would be even better here to get into Watkins Glen.
And you can't name any other driver as dominant here at the Glen than Lawson Peel. He's won the last 2 races here in upstate New York. Will he roughen up Stympian in turn 6? He cannot, but he is there. Turn 7, we'll find out what happens. Peel is loose. Grabs a bit of that grass. Could be dangerous like we saw with Sean Kalis earlier on in this race. It's still 1, 2, 3, separated by at least half a second. And Peel cannot find his way through Stympian for the race lead. And it's all about, Bradley, how patient you're willing to be, or how much of a lack of patience is there for Peel. We know that we are 7 laps away from the end of stage 2, so there is still a bit of time. But if you want a stage win, you want a stage win. And Peel desperately really needs that just to get all those playoff points that will have him possibly in the playoff standings lead when we get out of here if he does not get a race win. As he hops over the curbs on the bus stop chicane, he may have another chance at stealing the race lead away down the carousel.
Asking which car is which. Steve Stympian's leading the thing. I know there's a lot of similarities in these cars right now, but the 88 is definitely the front runner as of right now. How identical to these? Did they do that on purpose? I gotta ask, did they do it on purpose?
I almost feel like they did. It seems like Stympian's trying to gather inspiration from SVG and then grab inspiration from Peel, who's always so good at these road courses. They look almost identical. White front ends, black rear ends. Now here's Peel striking down low with the inside attempted pass for the lead here at the Glen. Peel's got it, P1.
Almost on the rebound though with a crossover into 1. Stympian thought about it, but now he's going to chase him through the S's. And now for everyone in the chat, the 12 of Peel in the white and dark black car. He's the leader.
And it was another solid move. Stympian attempted that crossover, though, at the exit of turn 1. Now, question is, how does Stympian handle his car? In a bit of dirty air as Lawson Peel tries to pull away with this lead and carry on for the rest of stage number 2. We saw that Stympian picked up his 7th stage win of the 2024 season. A lot of that has come in the last several months as he picked up steam through the end of the regular season. Lawson Peel, who found his stride midway through, sort of lagged a little bit. Hasn't been as fiery or as offensive as we thought he would be. But he seems to be holding on quite well. And he'll stay in the race lead for now, coming up to the last 5 here in the first stage. How about Shane Wyatt, rookie driver, running inside the top 8? Probably not much expectations for Wyatt himself going into a road course race, just managing to keep his Chevrolet on the racetrack. No mistakes and no problems for the Simrap market number 27. Wyatt, one of those rookie guys, Bradley, that we've discussed as one of the standouts recently. Finished inside the top 5 at Richmond 2 weeks ago, and just standing out nicely here inside the top 10, looking for stage points for the first time tonight in stage 2.
Yeah, I haven't really seen anything crazy from him today, but a solid top 10 effort. And with the Sunoco Cup Series starting 20-plus cars here tonight, to find yourself mid-pack, that's really an accomplishment, especially with the rookie stripes on the back. We don't have statistics on these guys with yellow stripes, so we're seeing what they're capable of at the tracks we're turning right on. Right now, of all the rookies, though, it looks like Alex Huffman is the driver with those yellow stripes to beat.
He's one of 2 rookie drivers that are still left in the Sunoco Cup playoffs, and one of 3 that started the playoffs. Eddie Smith was the tertiary guy that got eliminated in the round of 16. And there's Alex Huffman, who won his way into the round of 12 from that stunner at Richmond Raceway, won by a very slim margin over Colin Forrester in a green-white checkered attempt. Alex Huffman, despite everything that's gone on in the road course race, he's run nicely inside the top 5. Some big stage points on the way for Huffman as long as he can be able to step up. He's just like Chase Briscoe in a way, right? Huffman works for Stewart-Haas Racing in the real-life NASCAR Cup Series. Chase Briscoe made that last-ditch effort attempt to make the playoffs at Darlington Raceway earlier in this season. And Chase Briscoe has done well for himself. He's been able to bounce back from several deficits. And the same can be said for Alex Huffman, who at Richmond was right below the cut line going into that race before he got the win.
He had to win. He had to do it. And so statistically, for him, it was, a 1 in a million shot. You saw that race dominated by Stempien. And then we got into those late race cautions, and he played the strategy just right. Put himself in a situation where he was throwing that Hail Mary, and it landed in the end zone.
Huffman started 25th, by the way, in that Richmond race. So it was not only just a comeback from behind on the last lap, it was a comeback from behind the entire race. He had to work his way up through the field. And throughout everything that happened, right, we talked about how much chaos there was at Richmond. The short track, it started off as a pretty green race, separated by some yellows here and there, but everything turned up in that last stint and extended our race past a little bit. Austin Shoemaker hits from the top 10. He was about 7th or 8th place before he came down pit road. Is this a strategic call? Richard Swavely behind him. This is 3 laps before the end of stage 2. This could be for some track position here.
Yeah, this is a strategy call. I think for a lot of guys that are outside the top 10, maybe they'll find themselves in a better scenario for the bottom portion of this race. We've got 3 laps to go. I think it's a good call. I like it. You're going to make up a lot of track position, and maybe you find yourself 4 or 5 spots up from where this stage ends compared to where you finish. So I like it.
Well, if you think about it, Bradley, it's sort of the same strategy that the leader, Lawson Peel, employed at Sonoma. If you can recall that, he would pit several laps before the stage ended, give Austin Reedy the stage win, but he would have the lead after pit stops because he wouldn't have to come down pit road.
I was in major disagreement with that the whole time, that he kept giving the stage to Reedy because the situation warranted that he was the fastest car and deserved to win that. But he played the strategy and ended up winning the race anyway, so I couldn't argue with it too much.
Well, hey, Bradley, we were in the same boat, right? I was also asking, why give all these points to Austin Reedy? Why give him a better lead in the point standings if, that's going to switch around and, you're just giving away stages? But Peel had the win in mind. I guess that matters most in this series and in this playoff format. And we'll keep an eye on what Shoemaker and Swavely do. Both of them have been running just average throughout this race. Shoemaker rolled off from 13th on the grid. He sits just a spot back in 14th right now. And Swavely rolled off from 9th. He's 15th with that pit stop. They didn't lose that much time, but again, all of that is in the effort to stay out when everyone else comes in at the end of stage 2. Make it an effort for stage 3, but that does mean, Bradley, that they will have to pit a little earlier if we stay green for the 35 laps at the end, because it will be a little longer. And how difficult is that going to be to manage if you're Shoemaker and Swavely with this alternate call? Because this is making the bet at this point.
Yeah, and you mentioned the tire fall off not being that major, so it's not like an oval where these drivers will make up, a full second on the guys that are out there, and they'll have a tire advantage of 10 laps or so. So for me, I think it's just, 4 or 5 positions maybe here on the stage, and you get yourself up front, maybe get some clean air, and you're able to run your own race. I think when you start further back, maybe 7th, 8th, 9th position, it's a little bit tighter with the guys that are fighting for spots, and you find yourself using it up a little bit quicker than you intend to.
And Austin Shoemaker did finish poorly at Richmond, finished in 28th. A lot of that did come down to the crashes we saw at the end of that race. And so I guess in an attempt to turn things around, get a better result, if you can hold on for that final stage. White flag in the air for stage number 2. It was all Steven Stempien over the first 20 laps, but give another 20, and it's Lawson Peel, the most dominant man here at this very road course. Grab stage 2 here from Watkins Glen.
So Peel pulled out about a second and a half, just under that, in that run. It tells me that Stempien is plenty fast, but now that he's given up that position, I think it's going to be tough for him to get back around. We'll have to wait and see. He could do it on pit road and play defense again. So Lawson Peel lost a couple spots there that last pit stop. And so he had to kind of struggle his way back through, but made quick work of it. Congrats to Lawson Peel.
And grabbing stage points for the first time tonight, Colin Forrester and Shane Wyatt. Both of them enter the top 10, so they will grab some points for themselves. Lawson, in turn, grabs what will be his 5th stage win of the 2024 season. And there's Colin Forrester, who finished in 8th, just behind Curtis Kelly. What a job by Kelly, despite
Yes.
everything that happened with his teammate in front, surviving for P7.
If I'm Curtis Kelly, that rabbit's foot, that horseshoe, whatever it is, I'm buying 2 of them for next week because he's going to need all the luck he can get.
Curtis Kelly, a tank of a race car, right? Getting tank slapped by his teammate, but continuing on. Don't know if he will wait it off on pit road with the damage that he has. I think despite the hits, the performance isn't lacking all that much. So Kelly could just stay out theoretically and run this one to the end on that damage. Still be rather okay. Isn't enough to hamper his downforce or hamper his speed down the straightaways. So Lawson Peel on the field will catch up to the iRacing official pace car, which is coming up the hill in turn 2. And for Lawson, this is just typical Peel at these road courses, a dominant force. And it's funny because I was talking with him prior to a race in another league to where he said that he only won 1 road course race in that series.
Wow.
But here in Sunoco, he's known as one of the greatest of all time when it comes to lefts and rights. I don't know if this is considered a race over for everyone else. Surely that isn't the case for them, hope-wise. But when you have a driver as strong as Lawson at the front of this field and you don't have Austin Reedy in this race anymore, is anyone left to challenge Lawson in this regard?
Well, first off, we need to establish that he is human and he can make mistakes. So that's first and foremost. And you want to be there when he does. If you're Steve Stempian, Steve Harlow, any of these guys back here in 2nd through 5th position, you've been hanging pace with him. You're within a 10th. Stick with him as long as you can. If he messes up, be there to capitalize on it. Secondly, you've also got the scenario of these pit stops. You could very easily work your way back around him. Steve Stempian could get by on the exit of pit road. He has to be careful not to get speeding, but remember, he starts a little further ahead, peels all the way back there, and for Stempian, all he has to do is pretty much hit the throttle pedal and doesn't have to regulate his speed quite as much.
Well, you're right. Jesse Whittington and I believe it was Justin Erb jumped Lawson Peel on the pit stops after stage 1. Now, Peel did a good job of getting by them over the run, but it did take him a little longer than usual. Plus, you have Austin Shoemaker and Richard Swavely, who could stay out because they pitted about 3 laps before the stage came to a close. Now the alternate strategies are kicking in, coming into our longest stage of the night from Watkins Glen, New York. There's Lawson leading the group down pit lane. There are some staying out. Those are the 2 we talked about. Austin Shoemaker and Richard Swavely will assume P1 and P2. But what happens down pit lane this time around?
Looking pretty clean right now. Here's Stempian in his stall. I think right now it's just a matter of who's going to drop the jack first. You can see the 48 of Muscarella. He's going to throw a wrench into all of this and work his way in front. And for Peel, I think he wins the battle over the 88, but now we've got the 71 of Curtis Kelly, the 48 of Alex Muscarella, plus combine that with Shoemaker and Swavely that stayed out. There's 4 cars ahead of Peel in this restart. I mean, which row goes first? It could be dictating the outcome of this race.
And while Peel and everyone behind him took 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles in stage 2, Muscarella and Curtis Kelly did not take any tires on that stop. They got fuel only. They didn't even lift the jacks up once on either side of the race car. So they're keeping trust in their Eagles to keep them planted for the rest of this race, which will come across at about a little above 25 laps to go. We should have at least 27 remaining from upstate New York. Austin Shoemaker, the race leader on alternate strategy. How will things shake out when the field blends in turn 1? Find out on the other side as you're tuned in to coverage of the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs and the round of 12, live on VSPEED. 2 stages down, 1 to go from Watkins Glen, New York. Welcome back to our coverage of the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs and the round of 12 here on VSPEED. Kenneth Bueno and Bradley Cooper bringing you along for all of the action. And we've got a different look up front. Austin Shoemaker and Richard Swavely pitted with about 3 laps to go before the end of stage 2. Alex Muscarella and Curtis Kelly, who are conjointed together in row number 2. They took fuel only, everyone else behind. 4 fresh tires. Green flag back in the air for our final stage from the Glen. Alex Muscarella dives into turn 1, a peak at 3 wide, but Shoemaker stays up front off the first corner.
Team did a good job there in the entry of 1. Here comes the 12 of Keel already peeking to the inside of the 71 of Curtis Kelly. He's going to be the first of these cars that took no tires on this pit stop. Now you have the drivers that pulled the strategy in front of the 12. Austin Peel navigating this quickly. If you're Steve Stempien, you got to get on it now.
Stempien is holding back, though. He's now behind Stephen Harlow. Those two were fighting for the race lead in the first stage. Alex Muscarella is in the wall, off of the bus stop, and more drivers with him. Justin Urban, several others get taken out, and
they're gonna
this
throw yellow.
Will be our first caution for on-track incident off the bus stop. Unbelievable.
First caution that we've seen at a road course outside of a stage this season. 7, 8 cars collected in that, I believe.
And what happened there with Muscarella? Could it be the same mistake that we saw Austin Reedy make earlier in the race? He was running second, hopping over the curbs, and I think just clipped the grass, Bradley, off of that second corner.
Well, there's unrelated to that.
His way into the wall.
It was unrelated. I know that the 48 made a mistake, but it looked like Shoemaker and Herb got together, or maybe Shoemaker... Maybe Herb made a mistake. I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch this one a little more closely because it was completely unrelated to that.
Well, they were side by side. Herb and Shoemaker were at the entry of this bus stop. Not something you want to do at principle, but Shoemaker hops over that second curb, just bounces into Reedy, so in turn both of them just make that contact coming back to the left, and they go spinning. Alex Huffman gets a piece of that. Not a lot, but does get a stuff up. Shane Wyatt real close to that. Charles Stevens real close to that. The worst part about it all, Bradley, these are all playoff drivers.
And I think that warrants the caution there, right? Because a lot of these guys that had stage points have a chance. They're running for a championship, now get put, 10 seconds behind the field. And I don't think that 30 laps is long enough to recover from that. So I like that they threw the yellow. I agree with it 100%. And for the first time, we get to see these guys group back up. However, the scenario, I think for the 12 was very quick. That was quick work. Just a lap. We didn't even complete a full lap. And Lawson Peel worked his way up to second already.
And just a product of rushing on those fresh tires and finding the space. Chose the places where it mattered most, and ended up making those passes. An update from Alex Huffman, who got the damage from that crash, is sitting 11th. He's got the meatball flag, so he will have to take his Ford Mustang down pit road. Unknown as to how long he's going to spend down there, but the Richmond winner now under pressure for being bounced out of the round of 8. He came into this race, even with those playoff bonus points, 1 point below that round of 8 cut line. May fall a little more points down the road as he enters pit road. It appears not many others will join him, just those at the back that ended up with a bit of damage. Casey Knighton comes in, Chris Shoemaker is in, and that is it. Only 3 cars coming down pit road at the cross of the line for lap 46. So this will help pit road strategy quite a bit, just because if you're a driver that was short on fuel to the end of this race, you can now save a bit on this pace lap. Unknown as to how much that will save you, but it could give you a little bit of an advantage to pit a little later. But now that we have our first caution for on-track incident, which is something we did not expect to see at all, Bradley, what do you think mentally here? Does that throw you off your mojo? Are you out of rhythm, or just because it was the opening lap off of the previous caution that it's just rudimentary and you're back at it when the green flag comes back out?
I mean, it throws us off, so I can't imagine what the drivers feel like in this scenario. You planned this race out to not have those cautions. You know what lap you were going to pit on. Now you're extending this fuel run. If you're Austin Shoemaker and Richard Swavely, I'd be saving as much as I can here because you pit, 3 or 4 laps before the stage break. So now you get to kind of even yourself out a little bit. You extend that run a lot more. I don't foresee that we have one of these cautions again, but by some slim chance that we do, this race could even out entirely. These drivers could save enough that they could all run to the very end. And for the track position gained on that early pit call for Shoemaker and Swavely, this could be a blessing in disguise. So outcome change, I think when we throw yellows in football, it influences the game a lot more. This one's pretty minor compared to a 10-yard penalty, but yeah, it will influence it overall.
And for Austin Shoemaker, how much does that affect him? He will be under more pressure now that Lawson Peel will be on either his in or outside for the next restart. Shoemaker chose the interesting defensive line for turn 1. Sure that he'll do it again. But as for Lawson, if he can get that jump into the first corner, it may just be on the right place and right time. As for those others on fresh tires, they didn't make that much progress. Surprisingly enough, Lawson pushed the gun, but for Stephen Harlow and Steven Stempien running 5th and 6th, they just hung back where they were, possibly in the attempt to stay out of harm's way. If those old tire cars got into trouble, which they were half correct with Alex Muscarella going into the Armco barriers, but for everyone else, it didn't seem to be that big of a problem. So now they will have to try and play catch up to Peel. They will have several cars ahead of them if they want to make this a proper fight. So after our first caution for on-track incident at lap 46, we'll be ready to go at lap 48. This is now with about 27 laps to go. So I had the math wrong a little earlier. I'm not a math major after all. But we will have a solid enough run for the end of this race. Several of these guys on either 10 or 5-lap old tires, 5-lap and 10-lap old fuel tanks. So even with saving Bradley, I'd say it's really close. But if you were to be short, when is the right time to pit? Just assuming we don't get any more caution flags.
The split and the fall off of these tires, I think you just go into the halfway point of this stage. I don't foresee any real advantage. If you're fast, you're fast, and the tires aren't falling off for a lot of these guys that have been running top 3 all day. However, if you're Austin Shoemaker, Richard Swavely, that time's going to come a little bit sooner for you. So maybe your split, your halfway point's a little bit shorter. I think you run this thing out as right at the halfway point. I don't think it's advantageous either way.
We'll just see what happens, but Shoemaker in control. Lawson Peel will be right alongside him in row number 1. Curtis Kelly and Richard Swavely will join each other in the second row. And behind them, Stephen Harlow and Steven Stempien, the 2 fresh tire Chevrolets. They'll be back in row number 3. So about 27 laps to go from Watkins Glen, New York. Can Austin Shoemaker, on his strategy, stay above Columbus, Mississippi's Lawson Peel? They'll round out of turn 7 for what could be the final time. Will be under caution here in New York. Pace car is down on the straightaway. Shoemaker up to the front, Peel alongside for the first corner.
I've got to ask there. He's on the left-hand side. I don't think there'll be a penalty for that. The 14 was the command car. That's going to be interesting because the 12 beat him to the line. I don't know how that would work here at the road course.
Well, if race control is looking at that restart, they'll assume that Peel had the advantage into the corner. He gave it back going up to the hill, but now he takes the lead away as Shoemaker wiggled going up to the curbs and the overall hill. He'll stay in second. Curtis Kelly manages to stick in third.
Through the grass.
And Muscarella with another problem on the bus stop.
He's going to lock it down so he doesn't shoot back into the traffic there. We've seen a lot of mistakes here from the 48 through that portion of the racetrack just a moment ago before that caution came out. He kind of self-spun hitting those curbs, and now another one here for the 48.
could be very scary for the likes of Stepien and Harlow, who, remember, are on the fresh Goodyear Eagles. They still have to punt their way through Richard Swavely, Curtis Kelly, and second place Austin Shoemaker. How about a fight between playoff drivers for 10th? Shane Wyatt up ahead, and Chris Shoemaker, Alex Huffman in that secondary group that got his damage fixed on pit road. And Wyatt is way off those guys ahead. It's at least 2 seconds between him and the 9th place Chevrolet, but he still has to hold off some tight competition in the playoffs.
I kind of wonder what happened there. They got those guys so separated. You see Harlow here fighting back on Stepien. This is the first stage of the race that he's actually been ahead of the 88, and he's looking to keep it that way. Situationally got around just before that caution. Goes right back in front of the 88, who's sideways through that chicane, and opens the door for the first time today. Colin Forster's going to challenge the 88.
Those are cold tires for Stepien, who clocked in P6 in our last road course race of the season in Sonoma, California. Now the playoff points leader, Colin Forster, who we haven't seen all night long, is finally emerging from the curtains. He's starting to put that fight together. Justin Erb behind him with a possible chance to squeeze into the top 10 further. And this is all over the place. I'd say it spells trouble, Bradley, for Stepien. He could not get going on the restart before this, and on this restart also could not get his way through the old tire competition as Peel gets out to a 2.5-second lead at lap 50.
And mighty impressive here for Austin Shoemaker as far as he has jumped out over Curtis Kelly. And for Curtis Kelly, with the damage that he has, that's impressive as well. This top three rather, they're holding on a lot better than I thought they would. Top 5 spots, you know, Stepien, the leader of most of this race, and he's struggling to get around Swavely.
This blows the door wide open for anyone who wants to emerge in the top 3, because Sonoma, we had Lawson Peel, Mario Miranda, and Joe Sanchez occupy 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Miranda, as we mentioned earlier in the show, left the Sunoco Cup Series midway through the season. Joe Sanchez is on his move to East Boston, so he had to move his sim rig with him, is not available to join this race tonight from the virtual Watkins Glen International Circuit. Kelly, despite ending in the top 5 at Sonoma, couldn't grab another top 3. This time around, Stephen Harlow finds his way under Swavely. That gets into 4th. Stepien follows back to turn 1.
And Harlow had to make evasive maneuvers there. It was almost like you're piloting a jet in the Air Force. There was such a quick move there in turn 6 where the little mistake, that little bobble there by Swavely, and Harlow just moved over. It was pure execution there, reaction. That's what you have to do sometimes.
And it was common respect between those two, especially off the final corner.
There he goes
Harlow
again.
and Stepien went under, and Swavely just let them by. This is sketchy, though, through the bus stop.
Contact!
They'll make contact. Kelly goes sideways and off the course. They'll keep it together, but Harlow will bleed off a ton of track position. He'll have to come to a stop to avoid a cutting the track penalty, and everyone else goes by. Stephen Harlow, in about a 1.5 goes from top 5 to P13.
You even called it out there, Kenneth, that it was sketchy. We're going to look at it again. It's just not... It's not where you want to be, but it's where you ended up.
It's not where you want to make your move. It narrows up so much down the bus stop. It's almost inevitable that you're going to make contact at that portion of the track. That outside car, you know, grabs a bit of trouble when trying to stay on that outside, but
And
they
I
just
think he hit
merge
the wall
together.
a little bit.
Kelly gets loose and he saves it, and while Harlow goes off the track, he comes to a dead halt. And that's because you get a cutting the track penalty from iRacing if you stay on track and you don't give it up. It may have been over a 1.5 seconds, given the fact that he had to come to 0 miles an hour before getting back up underway. Now Harlow, in our longest stage of the race, is trapped in 12th with 23 laps to go. That's a huge dagger.
Yeah, that one hurts. I mean, he was ahead of Stepien, which is where he wanted to be all race long. Now he's got to make up 13 seconds to get back up there. And that's going to feel like an eternity for these next 20 laps.
Still some track position to gain up the road, though. Charles Stevens is the next car in line. That's 11th place, but You know, as this race progresses and as the stage continues to thin out the field, gaining track position, if it's not through strategy, is going to be a premium if you can find a car on the racetrack. And there's Chuck Stevens letting Harlow by. That fight out of turn 7. Alex Muscarella in there too. Good news for Harlow is that there are no playoff stakes, but this is the second race in a row, Bradley, to where Harlow had a strong car to start and finds himself in bad luck late as Muscarella cooks turn 1 and lets Stevens back on through.
I've been seeing a lot of locking out there for the 48. I think this car, it's not driving like it used to into turn 1. Also for Muscarella, though, he was having a lot of success in the first stage, and since then he's kind of been behind the 8 ball. I think he's overdriving it to get back to where he was, and it's just not agreeing with him. Another sketchy moment, contact through the bus stop. Muscarella gets away with it.
And they're just doing some hip checking there through the bus stop. I guess everyone's getting confident, right? They can make that move. I don't know. I wouldn't take it if I was anywhere on the racetrack. I wouldn't take it if I was by myself. I don't know.
I don't know a lot about road courses, but I do know that's not the place to do it. That's dangerous.
Well, they somehow kept it straight. Nobody went sideways in that altercation. Stevens does get bullied back to 13th, though. And Muscarella, who, like you said, Bradley, is just acting out of desperation right now because of everything that's gone through with him and the troubles that he's faced over this race. He's going to have to try harder if he wants to gain track position. He's chasing Stephen Harlow for 11th. On board with Austin Shoemaker. Great strategy employed off of stage 2. Got his position and ended up second on the recent restart. Steven Stepien, though, is trailing, not by that much. He may make the effort for that second spot in just several laps.
Yeah, I think he checked up a little bit there through the S's, that momentum portion of the racetrack. I want to say that Austin was a little bit off on his entry, but Steven cut him a little break there. You're watching that deficit, though, of 6 seconds continue to grow. For Lawson Peel right now, he's in cruise mode. He's on autopilot. So for him, if you want to shave this down, you have to get around the 14 of Shoemaker. Stepien cutting brakes right now. This is the final stage. I don't know that you can cut brakes. If you want to have any chance at winning this race, you got to go right now.
Well, here comes Stepien, peeking underneath in turn 1. Will not outbrake Shoemaker, but Shoemaker will get it loose at the entry of the 90. Stepien wants to beat this Ford Mustang dark horse up through the hill. Shoemaker, one of the several prestige worldwide racing cars that are in this field tonight, along with Chris Shoemaker, his teammate. They do not have Garrett Brown in the field. That's the Season 1 champion of this Sunoco Cup Series, as he's taking this week off from the Glen. So they are basically 2 drivers strong in this race, and they've done well for themselves, facing very different situations. Here's Stepien through the bumps on that bus stop chicane that was updated recently, Bradley, by iRacing. This track had an initial scan of about 2009, so this surface was incredibly rough. The curbing was very different. They finally got around to renovating this track recently, and it looks gorgeous on the new iRacing graphics and all of the new renderings done by the artwork team. And as Stepien tries to wrestle his way through the course, he is inching closer to that 14 car.
I want to see if he cuts him another break here. You can see where he backs it up a little bit based off of Austin's entry to turn 3. I don't know how much longer Stepien's going to be patient with the 14, because right here is where he wants to pass, and he does it again. He just cuts that nose off, and the opportunity is there on the exit of 1. He just can't do anything with it.
Well, perhaps he's hoping, Bradley, that Shoemaker makes the same mistake he did off of the last restart, where he had the lead off turn 1. He clipped a bit of that curbing on the inside of turn 2 up the hill, got loose, and let Peel by. That's why Peel did not get a penalty for jumping the start, because he gave the lead back off turn 1, but then just regained it in the span of about 10 seconds after. So Shoemaker yet to make a mistake. Stepien continuing the charge, and off the carousel. There he goes. Outside, turn 6, battle for second.
That was the mistake. I think this is the one that Stepien, just can't quite stay to that outside for the next corner. That would give him the inside advantage. you're watching this on the left-hand side grow to 8 seconds. That's almost a full second this lap. It's going to continue on and on and on. At 1:12.287, and then with the Stempien and Shoemaker, it's a 1:13.2. That's another second a lap. Fuel is almost out of range to even be possible to catch at this point.
And Bradley, how frustrated do you get if you're Stempien here? You're constantly trying to get by Shoemaker, and you just can't do it.
I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated, but you know, you got to weigh the options here. This is not the place. We've already seen it. I don't know if this is where I would want to go.
He's making the gamble. They make contact. Stempien runs wide in the bus stop.
It's not where I would want to do it. And here comes Swavely. He's just lost a spot from that. Yeah, frustration to the max for the 88 team.
And now they're side by side, Swavely and Stempien. That's a fight ongoing for third. Stempien can easily win this one as they chase back to turn 6 and 7. But that means the route back up to Shoemaker is going to be much more difficult. There may still be a pit stop in the play, so alternate strategy could affect the running order. But as long as Lawson Peel, like you said, can continue to enhance his race lead advantage, now it's about 10.5 seconds. Pit stops may not be in the cards to grab that top spot away. Stempien settles back in 4th place, hounding on Swavely's Chevrolet as Peel is in his own zip code. Coming down to 15 laps to go as here's Shoemaker down low on Alex Huffman, pair of playoff Mustangs for P10.
How about Huffman there? He had that meatball with that caution, was able to get a lot of that repaired and get the car back out on the racetrack. When we talk about a meatball flag, that is iRacing's version of telling you your car is too damaged to safely run the racetrack, and so you'll get a black flag for staying out. You have to pit, you have to come in, or you'll be penalized and ejected from the service. This is for the 10 car right now, probably the best scenario he can have after that. 31 of Forrester has problems.
There was a mistake down the bus stop, similar to the Fast Banana teammate of Austin Reedy, but different on the first curb. Went a bit of that Armco barrier and then went hard into the tire barrier at the exit of the chicane. Mind you, he was sitting P6 when this all went down behind Justin Erb in that battle between Swavely and Stempien. So Colin Forrester, business as usual down the back straightaway. But here he'll clip the barrier, and that's where it all unsettles.
That's where you got that damage. And then it's going to multiply right here. It's trying to regain control, but now the left front completely useless. And that's another one of those terminal damages that we were just talking about with Huffman. He has to come down pit road. He cannot continue, and I wouldn't want to with that left front being pretty much useless.
And the first round of the playoffs for Forster was bittersweet, finishing second both times. Last race at Richmond, falling short by just several hundredths of a second. And the round of 12 starts in an unlucky way. Forrester, as the playoff points leader going into this one, could face a pretty significant step back as we head into Michigan International Speedway next time around. On board from Stempien, who picks up third finally from Richard Swavely and has closed in the gap between himself and Shoemaker quite quickly. It's down to half a second between those two Chevrolets. And at this point, I don't even know, Bradley, if the motivation is to inevitably get to Lawson Peel. The motivation is just get to second place. Do what you can to make this pass and get it over with. Check it off on the checklist.
Yeah, you led a lot of laps. You got a stage win. Get a second place. This is a perfect points day for the 88 team. You could go into Michigan a lot more relaxed. This isn't one of those scenarios where you had to win or had to perform at Richmond. Now you can just cruise. Go to that final 8. What I'm seeing right now, though, is a lot of frustration, and the way he worked back the Shoemaker so quickly, I don't think he's going to cut him any breaks this time.
You know, for some, anger drives a driver away from a battle. Sometimes anger motivates a driver to do better as they run harder throughout the race. For Stempien, it seems to be the latter. He'll get the inside on Shoemaker, entering the carousel. Much cleaner interaction between those two, and finally, Stempien breaks free for that second spot. Caveat, he is 12.1 seconds away from the race leader Lawson Peel, who is just getting out of turn 7 and crossing the start-finish line now with about 15 laps to go. We await a possible pit stop that could be in the cards for these guys if they do stay out for as long as they do, they could go about 33 laps in their stint, which I don't know if it cuts close, Bradley, at this stage of the race. But if it doesn't, it will be a track position battle all night long. There's a look at 6th place Stephen Harlow, 7th place Kip Easley, and everyone else that runs single file behind. I think despite the long run, we're not having a lot of thin out from the field.
It's been a weird situation here. I think that caution changed a little bit here on the strategies and the way things are going to move. We are going to see green flag pit stops. I thought these drivers were still trying to split that in half. We're sitting at about 15 to go. But I don't know. If you're Lawson Peel, you can pretty much pit anytime you want. He's far enough ahead that I don't think that it's going to warrant, you know, a split on the side, or just run it as close as you can on fuel and come in. I don't see lap traffic becoming a factor either. Charles Stevens here, he's going through the bus stop now. Peel is just now working his way to the S's, actually through turn 1. So there's plenty of gap here that I don't think lap traffic will be a factor. And Peel could pretty much do whatever he wants here with the last 15 laps.
Well, if it does make a difference, it probably won't make a big one for your race leader, who's been patient throughout the race, and then lacked a bit of patience, but to the positive as he was weaving his way through the field on our last caution of the race. Now in cruise control. Great battle for top 10 position. Alex Muscarella playing defense on Alex Huffman. What a rebound for Muscarella, despite slamming the barrier off of the bus stop recently. Has picked things up, and he is catching up to Kip Easley, one of the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets. But they'll go door to door down the back straightaway. Easley could back up. He does. Smart move, but he may drop one to Huffman. Muscarella squeezes on by to 7th place, and he holds on now. It could have been mistake number 2, but Muscarella keeps it planted, and Easley now has another fighting chance.
Oh, the 8! He almost took out Huffman.
And as they got off of the carousel, Easley just caught the transition bumps and goes into the Armco barrier. It appears no suspension damage on the right front, but the three-way fight inevitably dissolves to about 2.
Oh, he clipped him.
That's just the asphalt there, Bradley, that catches Easley off guard, bounces the race car, and as that oscillation takes place, there's nothing Easley can do to save it. Here's a look from Huffman as it all goes down, and just how close that got between those two cars.
What was the contact right here? He hit that car. I think Netcould maybe saves the 10 of Huffman a little bit here. How frustrating would that be? Oh, Muscarella's around as we go back to a live shot. Here goes Huffman around. Muscarella through the S's got sideways.
That was up through the hill. I think Muscarella got a piece of the curbing, either that or got the guardrail. He got the guardrail, so the second option. Oh, Muscarella's just hanging on for dear life. Look at this.
That's a drift.
Wonderful save, though. And Huffman says, yeah, I'm out of here. Excuse me.
I think we should just have it on board on the screen all the time with the 48 right now.
Just have a side-by-side of the race leader and this Lowe's Chevrolet,
interesting.
who was going through Hades and back just to keep
There's
this
2 ways
car
to get
alive.
around here, and Alex Muscarella has shown us the second way.
Is he going through the drift version of this racetrack? Yes. I don't know.
Yes.
They call him the Mozzarella Man. It's looking a little cheesy right now on the racetrack as those tires are concerned. He is still keeping it up, though, as he sits in 10th. As he wanders into this Watkins Glen race, he sits only 2 points above that cut line. Give or take his competition at the time of the round of 12 entry. Shane Wyatt was a point ahead of him. Justin Erb, who's 2 points behind. Zach Wilson, 2 points behind. And Jesse Whittington, 7 points behind. The only driver to worry about if you're Muscarella is this Home Depot Chevrolet of Erb, who has been consistent all night long, started 5th, has stayed inside this top 5. You've got to give him a ton of credit for what he's been able to do here, Bradley, over the course of this race. And just staying out of harm's way, minding his P's and Q's, he could walk away from this one above that cut line.
I want to say that the 20 of Erb has gotten stage points every time, even if they were just the minimal amount. He's in a good scenario here to finish top 5 as well. So, great points day. I know that he's not one of those guys that we talked about pre-race that had, you know, really good chance to win. But overall, he's going to maximize points. He's doing exactly what he needs to do going into an elimination of 8. So, great job.
Well, several of these guys that we've mentioned as of late, all of them finished in the top 10 in our last road course race of the season at Sonoma. Talking about Muscarella, he finished in 9th. Justin Erb finished right behind him in 10th. So a lot of these guys are pretty good at these road courses, and they can show their skill. Some going through more drama than others, but for the most part, all of them have been doing quite well. Erb makes the use of that mistake from Austin Shoemaker, and at this point, it seems like he's entering the fall-off stage. In these final 10 laps or so, he'll be able to recover against Wilson Swavely and hold on to 4th place, but this is all about whether he can hold off Stephen Harlow's charge in his attempted comeback from falling to 13th after a mistake earlier on in the race.
Well, a shout out there to Austin Shoemaker. He was running outside the top 10 a lot of this day, and he's up 9 spots now. So this situation, even if he does lose these next 2 spots, it's still a positive gain. The strategy was a good call. But here with the lockup of the brakes, he's got to read this scenario as well, that he could get checked up. He could get moved out of the way. Anything can happen here. He needs to dial it back a little bit. Maybe not make some of these guys mad.
He was the aggressor there in turn 1, bumped Richard Swavely out of the way in the first corner. So Swavely drops back to P6, and as we mentioned, that 32 Chevrolet, he is set to pick up his first top 10 since late July of this year at Dover Motor Speedway. What a run this is for Swavely. I know that he's been bounced around a little bit. He's been around a ton of the action, whether he likes it or not, but another top 10 here, especially since it's been a while, would be wonderful for Swavely here.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. We've talked about Swavely. I remember, back in the productions back in the day, I'm mentioning his name a lot. He was always competing in the top 5, and it's been an off season for him on this final season of Sunoco. Get a solid day here. Even if it's, 6th position right now, that can turn the whole thing around for the final 4 races. I hope that he can keep it here and not make any mistakes. Oh, we do have a little bit of lockup there. I think that Stephen Harlow is starting to feel the frustration that Stympian had earlier.
Well, we had lockup from Justin Erb, who was sitting in 3rd place, and he takes those 2 spots for a roll-up in front. Harlow and Shoemaker end up occupying 3rd and 4th as Erb attempts to come back down the back straightaway. Harlow will not try something in the bus stop. They'll stay single file as they enter the carousel. Could do exactly what Steven Stympian did early on and just peek the nose underneath and down this long sweeping part of the track. It's almost like the Road America carousel. You have to be so patient with getting your foot back onto the throttle pedal and getting this car curled around that corner. Obviously, we've seen the mistakes from the exit. We've seen plenty of mistakes in the middle of that corner. You can just as easily miss the apex and go wide just as you can get loose off the corner. Both of them do a great job, though, of weaving their way through up into turn 7. Harlow could have the opportunity down in turn 1, but like you said, Bradley, he doesn't want to make any enemies here. He doesn't want to just jump the race car off an attempted risky pass. Here he goes anyway.
He's going to get right up in the mirror. In this situation, I know with less than 10 to go, it warrants it. You got to keep the pressure on. Just got to find the right place to pass, and so many times that opportunity has presented itself after the S's just before the bus stop. I don't know how many guys are going to keep trying that. It's a brave moment. If you're Stympian, if you're Harlow, we've seen it time and time again here tonight that it's just not worked. The only guy that it worked for was the 48, and they even still made contact.
And even then, it still got sketchy. It could have gone
Yeah.
disastrously wrong had something else gone down. But Harlow tries anyway. He'll pick up in turn 6, try once more on his Ford Mustang Dark Horse. This is a win, though, for both of these guys anyway. These are 2 of the 4 non-playoff drivers that occupy the top 10. Shoemaker sitting 3rd, Harlow sitting 4th, Swavely in P6. Well, that's actually 3, so I counted wrong. But 3 drivers in the top 10 non-playoff runners. These are the guys you're watching right now. As they say, 3rd, 4th, and 5th entering turn 1. keep up with what happened up front. Lawson Peel, who catches about 6 laps to go, is up by 10.2 seconds over Steven Stepien, despite setting slower lap times than that 88 car as of late. He's got enough time to bleed, enough time to keep ahead.
I am seeing that come down a little bit, though, Kenneth. It was over 12 seconds before Stepien was able to get around Shoemaker, even with the mistakes and all the breaks that he cut him. But we're slowly watching this number come down. Are we watching Lawson Peel on cruise control, where he's just out there relaxed, not really caring about it? Or is Stepien just driving everything it's got left?
It could be a mix of both, right? Two things can be simultaneously true. And for Peel, it's probably just because he has such a huge gap. He can play with it however he wants to. It's not enough of a gap to where if he lags off a little bit that it will be detrimental to his race. He can just lose a couple of tenths and gain it back if he wants to. For Stepien, of course, he's running the heart out of that Chevrolet car. He is trying to give it all that he has in these waning laps. And even then, even if Lawson does give up some time, unless he makes a drastic mistake, it may not be enough with the time that is allowed. Here's a look on board from Stepien's Jump in the Hammer Chevrolet in clear track up the hill and through the back straightaway.
And just prior to that, we saw Austin Shoemaker get passed by Stephen Harlow, and then very quickly Justin Erb got around him as well. So for the 14, he'll fall back to 5th position. Very sketchy through the bus stop that time for Stepien. He used every quarter of an inch that he could through that portion of the racetrack, and he's going to hold on. When you hop those curves like that, I mean, is that an advantage? If you hit them just right, is it setting the nose for the next one?
It should be all right, but Stepien will keep in play. And regardless of what goes down, Stepien will have a great point stay out of the Glen. And this should keep him with a healthy margin above everyone else in that round of 8 cut line heading into Michigan International Speedway, which may be way more unpredictable than what we've seen tonight, despite all of the circumstances. And there's a look at the race recap presented by Sunoco on the top of your screen. 3 cautions, one of them for on-track incident, and only 3 lead changes. Lawson took it away and never looked back. Steven and Lawson have split the stages so far tonight, but with 4 laps to go, next time by, Lawson is set to grab what will be his 4th win of the 2024 Sunoco Cup season. That will actually break the tie-in wins between Peel and Stepien, as Stepien is the most recent winner out of those two after getting the W at Darlington in mid-August. He'll have a chance to strike back and get that golden ticket into the round of 8. And that may be good news just because Peel is encountering, like everyone else, one of the more unpredictable rounds in the Sunoco Cup playoffs. In the round of 8, you've got only Talladega and Las Vegas, so a super speedway could change things, but a mile and a half to end that round and then a mile and a half to settle the championship may just be as normal as can be. But with a road course and a 2-mile oval in this round of 12, getting that golden ticket will be a huge sigh of relief.
Absolutely. But I think with the scenario and those mile and a halves coming there at the end of the season, a lot of people don't like Homestead. And I don't know statistically what Lawson Peel performs there, but I do know that Steven Stepien mentioned he likes that track. So if you give him a chance in that Final 4 to go to that racetrack, I think Lawson Peel has his work cut out for him. If they both make it, it's going to be a showdown amongst 2 of the greats in this league.
Well, if somebody ever tells me I don't like Homestead Miami Speedway, I will kindly ask them to rethink their opinion, to rethink it for a long time, rethink it for several years, and then come back to me after that.
I agree.
So to my favorite tracks, Bradley, do you think it's great on the sim?
I love Homestead, but you know, it's an acquired taste, and for all the reconfigurations that track has had, they've made the racing better, the progressive banking much more fun to drive. It's just one of those places where you can be deceitfully fast for the first 10 laps, and then suddenly you can't drive it anymore. So it's really a driver's track. It's one of the few ovals that you really have to pace yourself on.
You know, we've got the last 2 races of this season as driver's tracks. Las Vegas has a bit more grip than Homestead, but it's still one of those venues that you have to sort of get used to in a sense. And, you know, with the way you manage the throttle there, it is a little more tricky to get around. the benefit for a lot of these guys is that Las Vegas is a track we've seen before. Race 2 of the season in early March is something where you can pick off notes from there just because that track hasn't received any big updates as of late. So that'll be the familiar factor for them. Homestead, though, always shows up one time, once a year, and in this series, it's always been the season finale for the most part. So, Homestead will be really exciting when we have that championship 4 dialed in. Here's a look from Alex Muscarella, who will pick up a top 10 from Watkins Glen should he evade any more mistakes after starting 14th tonight. And he is just all by himself. This is really the portion of the race, Bradley, where there's no one around you unless you make a really great mistake. There is several tenths back to Shane Wyatt back in 11th, but as long as they stay where they're at, it's basically just racing the track until the end. Look how Wyatt bounces over those curves.
Yeah, I think Shane is in a situation here for a top 10 if we see Muscarella make a mistake, but I think the 48 car has settled down tremendously. We were talking about 7.5, almost 8 seconds to Chris Shoemaker in 9th. I don't think he has any reason to push it like he was earlier, but here we go for 2 to go on the other side here at Watkins Glen International. Lawson Peel, he's going to take the white flag after a couple more corners. Another time zone, we saw the lead dwindle down, but I think he was just in cruise control mode, and now for these last 2 laps, he's just going to run it all out.
He's been letting that advantage go to the wayside, but the time is running out for Steven Stempien as Lawson Peel, this time around in turns 6 and 7, will pick up the white flag in search of his 4th race win of the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season. This would give him the golden ticket into the round of 8 with no worries at Michigan International Speedway. White flag in the air from the Glen.
Just 7 more corners. That's all you have to do. He's done it a little bit better than everybody else here tonight. For Lawson, this is one of those things, locking yourself in to that round of 8. A huge sigh of relief to how this season started. You got to feel extra awesome going into this next race at Michigan, because you know that you just have to race for that top 5. You don't have to go out there and win. It's just one of those tracks that anything can happen, kind of like a Daytona or a Talladega.
Well, as Peel rounds out of the carousel for the final time, this is in stark contrast to what happened to him in the first round. Finished in 7th after a chaotic Atlanta race, then 13th at Richmond, with everything that gone down in the last 20 or so laps in the Commonwealth. But in upstate New York, the sun shines on Columbus, Mississippi's Lawson Peel, who keeps himself as the greatest Sunoco Cup driver at the Glen. Final corner, Lawson Peel takes the checkered flag for the 4th time this season and advances into the round of 8.
A lot of racing going on this racetrack still, though. That's how spread out these guys got. This is for the top 10 with Alex Muscarella, Shane Wyatt. Richard Swaley held on to the 6th position. How about Austin Shoemaker with a top 5 on this?
Off of that alternate call in stage 2, it pays off. So Austin Shoemaker gets a top 10. There's Muscarella crossing the line in P10. As Shane Wyatt falls just short in 11th, despite his best efforts. Charles Stevens clocks in from 12th place. And there's Alex Huffman, who got a ton of damage earlier on after a crash in the bus stop, and picks up 7th place after taking the win at Richmond just 2 weeks ago. And there's Lawson Peel. Celebrations as everyone gives their congratulations. Stephen Harlow recovers from a mistake that sent him to 13th place, picks up 10 spots in the span of about 15 laps, and gets a podium. How about that for Harlow? There's Justin Erb, fellow playoff driver on the outside. May end up with a spot inside the round of 8 after this race. And for the 4th time this season, Lawson Peel will take his Chevrolet to victory lane and continues to add to his accolades here at this famed Watkins Glen International Circuit. Lawson Peel brings you tonight's Sunoco winning moment. More high-performance engines rely on Sunoco race fuels than all others combined. And for over 50 years, Sunoco has been powering the top drivers around the world with high-quality fuels they can trust to power them to the checkered flag. Sunoco, fueling victories from track to tank. What an impressive showing of display, Bradley, for Lawson Peel, who started this race back in 15th, didn't even clock in a qualifying time, but that didn't matter.
Shows his speed. I mentioned it to you during the break. I wanted to know that league that he only has one win in, because the way he gets around these road courses, and for that one and only win there to come at this racetrack, that shows how good he is here. And to start back in 15th without a lap, work his way through this traffic, ran a smart race. So how many guys that we see tonight in traffic make mistakes, and he just did it perfectly.
And that makes it 7 of the last 9 road course races in this series where Lawson Peel has taken the checkered flag. And with that, splits the tie, ends up actually beating Steven Stepien on most wins of the season so far. Peel in his own category at 4. 75 laps done from Watkins Glen, our first and only road course race of the Sunoco Cup playoffs. We've got post-race coverage on the other side. You won't want to miss a thing here on VSPEED. We'll be back in just a moment.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide. Even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
Well, in upstate New York, we had some fireworks, we had some great racing, and we had Lawson Peel take away his 4th win of the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season. Let's roll you through our unofficial results here from Watkins Glen, New York. Peel takes his 7th race win of the last 9 road course races in Sunoco Cup history. And this in turn gets him 4 wins on the season and will lock him straight into the round of 8 in several weeks' time. Steven Stepien came back to finish in 2nd place, closed in the gap considerably to the race winner, and falls short by 6.9 seconds, but a great point stay regardless for the 3-time winner this season. Stephen Harlow was a strong car all race long, bounced back from a mistake in the bus stop that cost him 10-plus positions. He rebounds to finish on the podium. We'll talk to all 3 of them before we wrap up our coverage this evening on VSPEED. Justin Erb comes out of this race with a great showing that'll put him right above that cut line entering Michigan International Speedway. Austin Shoemaker making that gutsy call right before the end of stage 2, rebounds to a top 5 position. Richard Swavely gets his first top 10 since Dover earlier this season. He ends up in P6. Alex Huffman, the Richmond winner, ends up in 7th place. Curtis Kelly, despite picking up damage from his teammate Austin Reedy earlier in the going, he ends up in 8th. 9th goes to the other Prestige Worldwide Racing Ford Mustang of Chris Shoemaker and Alex Muscarella. I'd say Bradley went through everything and back throughout the race, somehow picks up a top 10.
Yeah, he did everything. Every part of this racetrack, I think he drifted. So phenomenal. I was very entertained with how Alex Muscarella got around this place tonight. So kudos to him. Shane Wyatt's going to come home in 11th position. Quiet day for him, but overall, not too bad. He didn't have a lot of mistakes, didn't get caught up in too much. So quiet for him. 12th, Charles Stevens. Chuck Stevens, we had on board with him a couple times. He got caught up in some things, but ultimately he survives Watkins Glen. Kip easily gets 13th. Colin Forrester, unfortunate day for him. He, put it on there in those last couple stages, but ultimately that damage, terminal coming out of that bus stop, he'll finish 14th. Casey Knighton in 15th. Garrett Brown, very early exit for him. He'll be 38 laps down in 16th position. Jesse Whittington, who we saw there on the live feed, apologizing in the chat. You have nothing to apologize for. We understand the frustration for the 94 team. Austin Reedy, also a frustrating day after starting on the pole. He'll finish in 18th spot. And then you have Sean Kalis and Chris Progar to round out the field.
Yeah, just a note on Jesse Whittington. The reason why he went through that situation entering turn 1 was his computer started to freeze. So he was right behind Colin Forrester, tried to get out of the way just so he wouldn't hit Forrester, then hit the wall, and inevitably just alt F4'd out of the race. So best of luck to Whittington as he enters Michigan, probably with a big deficit that he'll have to crawl out of. Those are the final 3 drivers in this field. Brad Fulham barely took a lap here at the Glen, spent most of this race on pit road. Dustin Reeves and Wyatt Brackett unfortunately did not make the green flag. It appears Dustin Reeves was acting more as race control or just helping along on the admin side of things. That's your full running order from Watkins Glen International. We join Lawson Peel now in Sunoco Victory Lane. Lawson, this is a return to greatness on the road courses. Not that we haven't seen it already this season, but for you, it's a pivotal win that gets you your 4th on the season, but most importantly, locks you into the round of 12. What was this race like, especially knowing that you started this race without a qualifying lap put on the board and you had to roll from 15th?
It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun coming through the field in that first stage and had a couple of restarts there. And both the Stevens were really fast there tonight. I knew Austin Reedy was going to be fast, and I think he probably would have been in the mix too if he would have survived to the end. But overall, a great race. Just tried to stay disciplined and take care of it. Not push or overdrive more than I had to, and just stay within those limits because like you saw a couple people lose it in the bus stop up there. It's really easy to do, and the S's are really tough. With these recent updates, and especially in dirty air, you just really wash out coming up that hill. So some tough spots on the track, but felt like putting the S's and the bus stop together and the carousel really made the lap. Just that kind of section of the track, if you could kind of get up those S's well and get through the bus stop well, you'd make good time. So just tried to focus and stay in that rhythm all night.
You mentioned the balance of aggression versus staying put at this track, Watkins Glen. And what happened in that second stage recap when you guys got off of that caution, and then Austin Shoemaker's in front of you. You've got several other cars there, and you became the fresh tire car that pushed your way through the field faster than anyone else. What was behind all of that speed and that carving through the field? Did it feel like go time there?
Well, on cold tires, it was just really treacherous. So you really couldn't go, or you'd kind of get out of control really quick. So yeah, like you're saying, just controlling the aggression and just cautious aggressiveness, especially for the first 2 or 3 laps until the tires came up. I elected to change tires twice there. Just felt like my left front was going away. The carousel just really kind of shreds those left side tires. So I knew some people would throw some fuel only in there, and they did. Like I saw Alex did it, and Austin Shoemaker did it there, and a few others too. Maybe thought a few more people would do that or jump some stages, but so didn't have too much strategy flipping and stuff to contend with other than a few cars here and there. So that was nice, because when you get buried back there on these restarts, it can just get hairy really easily going up through the S's, as you know. So just had to wait for the tires to come up to temp, and you saw, I mean, people getting loose there and kind of getting out of control. So just keeping it on the track and taking what the car will give you. So.
Well, this race win ticks off now 3 in a row for you at Watkins Glen. No doubt that you're one of the most dominant drivers when it comes to this specific road course. But most importantly, you're locked into the round of 8. What advantage does that give you heading into the playoffs and as we move forward? Yeah,
with Michigan next week, that's really nice to know, because it's, as we all know, Michigan's going to be your hybrid between your speedway type race and your oval type race. It's going to be a lot of 3 wide and in cars kind of stuck together in a pack, and you can just get wrecked and have your night ruined real easily in that kind of environment. So nice to be locked in, and yeah, nice to go 3 for 3 here at Watkins Glen. My 3 seasons in this league, was able to win here all 3 years. So miss Mario just a little bit tonight. So, but yeah, just appreciate all the admins, everybody here in Sunoco. It's just been a blast, and hate this league is kind of coming to a close, but we've had a lot of fun the last couple of years, and just appreciate everybody for all the work they put into it, and we'll try to finish the season out strong.
Well, who are those people, Lawson, that you want to thank and appreciate for this dominant Watkins Glen win?
Well, you guys up in the booth, as always, VSPEED, and everybody that just makes it happen, and Dustin and Dakota for everything that they do, and all my Drinking Bros teammates, Paul Setup Shop, and everybody that just watches and supports the league and contributes. It means a lot, and we have a lot of fun.
Well, it's a trifecta for you here at the Glen in dominating fashion, and you are locked into the round of 8. Lawson, welcome to the next round in the playoffs. Congratulations on the win, and we'll see you at Michigan International Speedway in just a couple weeks' time.
Appreciate it, Kenneth.
Lawson Peel, driver of the 12, victorious here at the Glen. I think he's a little good at this place. Wouldn't you say, Bradley?
Yeah, statistically, I think you're a little good at segues too. I'm admiring that one. It was a very smooth transition. High praise there from Lawson Peel, and a shout out to us here in the booth. I always appreciate hearing what he has to say. But yeah, he's definitely got Watkins Glen figured out for what he did here.
Well, we'll turn to you, Bradley's second place, Steven Stempian, driver of the 88 car.
Steve, I gotta ask, man, was it on purpose? I just gotta ask right now. It was hard for everyone in the chat. They were asking about that paint scheme. Were you trying to camouflage that you were the 12 car out here and channel that energy to stay up front?
I didn't even realize it until after Dakota made this for me. I've been hounding him about making me another drop of the hammer scheme, and I didn't realize it until he finished it. I was like, damn, this looks like Lawson's scheme. I was just trying to, emulate some SVG energy with the number font. That's all I was trying to do. But safe to say this scheme will not be ran again. But, that was the main purpose of it. Channel some SVG energy for some good luck here.
Well, we saw you in the pre-race. You come out here and start on the front row. You win the first stage. You dominate the first stage to the most part. Then it started to get a little challenging there in that second stage. But even with pit stops and all the cycles in this race and all the things you had to deal with there in that final one, you find yourself on the podium. How frustrating was it to get back to second place?
Yeah, I mean, it was super frustrating, especially getting held up. I knew I was quick. This is probably the best I've felt at a road course in some time, and I was just dialed in. Trying to make quick work, and just got held up with Shoemaker there, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna push somebody out of the way. I've always been one to earn your spot. You gotta earn it, and just be the better driver. And unfortunately, that first time through the bus stop, I just, me and him made a little contact and got me sideways, but I was able to rebound and, put some solid laps in and get back up there in finish second. So I was proud of that. So overall proud. I'm not no road course ringer, so proud of leading some laps, getting a stage win. That was huge. Would have liked to battle Lawson. I would have liked to see if I had something there. And I know looking at the lap times, I was dialed in the last 15 laps. But he was probably on cruise control because he was so far out. But you never know.
Well, and Steve, it's obvious that you put practice in here to start up there in that front row. How relaxed does this make you, though, that you come into Michigan with a great, points day overall, and now you're in one of those races that could go any one of 1,000 ways, kind of like Atlanta did?
Yeah, I'm not relaxed, man. Now Lawson's got more wins than me this season, so now I gotta come out and try to get another win. You can never keep your foot off the throttle. It's the playoffs. We got some good stage points. Finished well tonight, but we still gotta. Anything can happen. It's Michigan. It's pretty tight. I've always been pretty successful at Michigan, so I'm looking forward to it. Just try to keep it clean. Get a win or finish in the top 5. Hopefully, seems to be the trend of the season. If we get some long green flag runs at an oval, I can really showcase my talent in saving tire and putting some gaps on guys in this league. But we'll see what happens. Just keep the eye on the prize, man. Just try and get to Miami.
You showed that you can do that at Darlington. That was the best example that I could come up with in my mind. And you're saying, don't catch me sleeping here. Steve Stimpy and anybody you want to shout out before we let you go.
Yeah, obviously you guys for the effort you guys put in, week out. Love that, and you guys do a great job. And obviously, to kind of piggyback off what Lawson said, it's gonna be sad seeing this league go. It's been home for some of us for a couple seasons. I'm gonna thank Dakota and Dustin for everything they put in. We're coming down to closing time, as Semisonic said. But we'll make the best of it. Try to get a few wins here. Keep the fans out there happy, and obviously my beautiful wife, my dad out there supporting me every week, never misses a race. My 2 kids, and obviously everybody at DTH. Great finish for us between DTH and Toe. You had Justin in the top 10. Stephen Harlow obviously battled with me all night. So great finish overall. I'm pretty proud of that group, and we'll look to keep the momentum going for Michigan and see if we can get another win. And Kenneth, I know you're a stat guy, but I think that's my best finish at a road course race in my career here at Sunoco. Is that correct?
I actually didn't look up the stat, but I will believe you there. I will believe that it's true.
I think it is true. So I'll take it. Love it. Second place, I'll take it. I appreciate it, guys. You guys have a good we're back next weekend, right? Next Sunday?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
We will see you at Michigan, man.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you.
Steve Stimpy in second place here tonight, and I will just declare it because I don't know any better. That sounds like the best finish he's had here at a road course, and he put the practice in to be here.
It does, and for Steven Stimpy in second place. Third place, though, a non-playoff spoiler by the name of Stephen Harlow. Stephen, welcome to the broadcast booth. It's great to have you. Congratulations on the third place finish. I want to ask you about that comeback. You made a mistake in the bus stop. You ended up falling to about 13th place, and you somehow rebounded with all of the laps that were left. What was going through your mind at that point, and how were you able to rally back in this way?
I think it's just I had enough practice, either from practice or the first 2 stages, to feel confident really that I could get back up there as soon as I started moving again after the bus stop, which I made sure I stopped. Everyone was talking about, you have to stop if you miss a bus stop. So I figured I missed the last section of it. I'll have to stop, even if it's on the grass, and then get moving again. And then from there, it was just track them down, get by everyone as fast as I could.
Well, it all pays off in those final laps. You end up taking your best career Sunoco Cup Series finish here tonight, third at Watkins Glen. What does that mean for you? I know this season has been rather rocky, but how meaningful is it to break free in this race and be able to grab third place away?
It's huge. I've been looking for at least a podium all season, hoping to put together a good run, and I really thought I threw it away in the bus stop there, but I was really happy I could get back up there, keep racing, running good laps.
And you kept the nose relatively clean on this Chevrolet Camaro. Only several races left in your rookie campaign. And just to turn off what Lawson and Steven have been saying, it's obviously shameful to see this league is going away after this season, but you've made some waves in your debut season of this series. What's left for you here? Michigan, Talladega, Las Vegas, and Homestead. What do you see out of those final 4 races?
Well, Michigan and me don't really have a good history for some reason. The backstretch and I always seem to find each other and cause problems. Whether it was running in Xfinity for a championship and wrecking out the race before playoffs or before the final race, or running a I think it was in the Winter Series where, again, just wrong place, wrong time, got caught up in something on the backstretch and wrecked out again. But I do love Michigan. It's a lot of fun. I just want to be able to get through there cleanly. Talladega is going to be a toss-up. Vegas is fun. Homestead's one of my favorite tracks on the service. So I'm hoping for another podium, and at the very least, just fun racing.
Well, nonetheless, good momentum in these last several races. Good momentum coming out of Watkins Glen. One final question, Steven, on behalf of your team and everyone that makes it happen to you or happen for you, who are those people and who do you want to thank for this run?
All right, I want to thank Warrior Soar, or all of my sponsors really. So Warrior Soar, Team Watson Racing Setups, and Project Hopner. They're all people that have stuck by me for the past couple years racing and iRacing, and I'm really thankful that they've been with me the whole time. I want to thank my family at home for watching, my brother Ross, whatever he's doing right now. I love him to death, so got to thank him no matter what. All my teammates, Justin was actually asking me once I got up to him, he was like, hey, you want to just fight it out for a podium, see what happens? And then sadly he was gone. So, and then thank my girlfriend in the other room who's sleeping right now. She has to get up early tomorrow. Her support's really been getting me through all of this stuff, so really thankful for her.
Well, Steven, we give you all the time to thank everyone you need to in a well-earned third-place position. We're happy that you get your first podium of the season tonight at Watkins Glen, only up from here in these last 4 races. Thank you so much for the time. Congratulations on the podium. We'll see you in the Irish Hills next Sunday.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Steven Harlow with his best career Sunoco Cup finish in 3rd place. That's always a great, compelling story when you have someone in the rookie season do as well as Harlow has, especially as of late. And that's your top 3 here from Watkins Glen, New York. All right, Bradley, we had a chaotic road course race. Now we're headed off to Michigan next Sunday night, October 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Your thoughts on the 2-mile oval that meets the field next and what lies in the point standings?
My personal thoughts are this is my favorite place to race. You come out here, it is one of those tracks that's high speed, high risk, high reward. You can go 3 wide, you can go even 4 wide and be safe about it. Multi-groove racing, that's where I like to strive. But for us here at Sunoco in the commentary booth, it's going to put on an excellent show. You're going to see every single camera angle thought and imaginable. The racing doesn't get much more intense than this. Check your pulse. If you don't enjoy next week, I don't know what else to tell you. You're just not into racing. Week 4 of the playoffs, it comes down to the final 8. This is the place to do it.
You won't want to miss it. The playoff fight continues to get tighter, and mind you, we will eliminate 4 drivers at the end of that Michigan race, and we'll decide those 8 that will advance to the next round of the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. So once again, Sunday, October 6th, we will not be skipping a week this time. We'll go racing next Sunday, October 6th. That'll be 8 p.m. Eastern right here on the VSPEED YouTube channel. We are crunching down to the final 4 races of this 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season. We're so glad that you joined us up until now, and we're so glad to see you join us for the rest of the season. Talladega, Las Vegas, and Homestead. All that's left after Michigan. And we'll decide those that head to the championship 4 in South Florida and go at it for the final ever Sunoco Cup Series title. That'll do it for us here from Watkins Glen, New York. For Dakota Curtis and the entire admin team that gets it going at the Sunoco Cup Series, for Adam Baker, for all of his hard work at VSPEED, and for our colleague, or for our broadcast crew tonight, my colleague in the booth, Bradley Cooper, I'm Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from Watkins Glen. Congratulations on Lawson Peel getting his 4th win of the 2024 season. He's on to the round of 8. Who joins him at Michigan? Find out next Sunday.